Okay, welcome back to the March 7th council meeting. We have a quorum present. We have just come out of the closed portion of our meeting and there's nothing to report. So with that, do I have a motion to open the meeting?
I'll put it forward.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes. Aye.
Carried. Okay, we'll move right to the adoption of the agenda. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda?
Yes.
I'll put it forward.
Okay, second.
Yeah.
Now, I just wanted to, from the last meeting, there was the First Nations acknowledgement was to be added to the agenda. Could I put that in under new business? I don't see it under.
That's fine with me.
Yeah.
I mean,
You had submitted something last time, Michael?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what are you asking for now?
Well, just well, it's that we're going to, I guess we're going to authorize it, but basically I'm just going to ask if we can, at the beginning of the meeting, say we are privileged to be meeting and doing work on the traditional unceded territory, the Squamish and Musqueam nations. What I was going to add to the new business. So
I'm fine with that.
You want to discuss it or
just do it.
well, I think we should have some discussion about it.
Okay, well, let's put it into new business then. Whether we're going to add it.
Okay, we'll add it to new business. All right, any other additions?
Neville, you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, I've got a couple of things. First of all, do we have the works manager with us?
No, I believe that he was asked not to attend. Unless I'm wrong. That's what Ron Miller said, CAO.
Why is that?
I don't think he thought it was necessary that we spend the money on overtime, I think was his thought.
Okay, well, first of all, I'm going into that again. We don't pay him overtime. Please stop saying that's not accurate.
I actually.
Okay, well, I'm prepared to discuss it if you're right. You're wrong.
When there's overtime, it's credited as time, and then when it gets to 80 hours, it's converted either into cash or into a vacation.
He doesn't charge overtime. They have an agreement in their contract that they get some additional vacation thing in lieu of overtime. It's in their vacation. None of them charge for coming to the meetings.
Okay, we're gonna have to talk to the CAO about that because that is not what he said.
And I've told him he's wrong, but anyway.
So
Okay, orders of the
That's
day.
not-
I wonder if it could, is that, it's a question, the answer?
The question is, well, I guess the question
Will he
is,
be attending the meeting? I heard the answer was no.
so we're not going to have staff attend meetings, decision?
Not unless it's needed.
Okay. I just think that's wrong. I think we need the staff. They have the information, they have the history. I don't understand this. I'd like to put a resolution forward that we go back to having the management staff, the exempt staff attend the meetings.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, discussion.
I would not support that. I think we have staff who need to be in the village, working in the village during work hours during the week. And I think to ask them to come for 6 o'clock to sometimes 10:30 meeting, which I believe Public Works Superintendent Jaffer last time was here until 10:30 last week, and
Well, he was online, he wasn't here, but sure.
Sorry.
well, he was
Counselor.
he was on
Oh,
he
thanks,
was
please.
he was in attendance at our meeting from 6 until 10:30 last week, and I don't know if that's best use of his time. So you know, the CAO is in charge of how staff time is allocated, and the CAO has said unless you're needed to be at the meeting, I would ask you not to be at the meeting. It sounds like. So you're making a motion that all staff attend the meeting. At this point, the CAO.
Exempt staff, which are the.
Sorry, speak in,
Pardon me.
please. I got the speakers list
The
here.
CA.
I'm correct, just a correction.
Okay,
I didn't say all staff, Michael. I said exempt staff, the management staff.
I'm saying, okay, Okay, that you're saying that you're asking that staff attend, that exempt staff attend the meeting. At this time, the exempt staff, we have a CEO and a CFO, were one and the same, so they'll be attending. So effectively, we're saying the work superintendent, works manager, public works manager. And so unless he's needed, and typically we would need him in closed session or at the beginning of a meeting, we could schedule that. Then I would encourage him to be available during the workday and not be working in the evening if not required. So I realize that this has been the practice, but I think that could be questioned whether we need to have all exempt staff attending all meetings and then expressing concern about workload and work time. So, I just think we need to re-examine what we're doing. So I would not support the motion of having exempt staff attend all meetings. I would suggest that they attend meetings as requested by the CAO.
Okay. My feeling is that I'm not in favor of having the exempt staff here. Sorry. I thought you did speak at the beginning.
No, I put forward the resolution. I haven't had the chance.
Okay, let me adjust the speakers list. I'll put you right now. And Councillor Reuter, you'll go after Councillor Abbott?
Sure.
Okay, and I'll go following you.
Happy to go after you.
Abbott.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, we have items on the agenda tonight where NI is needed. The CAO, CFO is not in the room. I'm not sure why he's not in attendance. I'm not sure when he intends to attend. And we've had numerous items in the last few meeting minutes, and we'll have them again tonight, where the only person that can answer the question is the works manager, because we don't have a CAO that has any knowledge. He's absolutely necessary, and it is not going to change how he's paid. So that's all I've got to say.
Okay, Councillor Ryder.
Yeah, I think our meetings would move forward much more effectively if we had the works manager here. He's got a lot of information and background. It's not going to change anything as to payment. And I just don't understand why Ron Miller isn't here either. He should be in this meeting. That's part of his job description. He should be sitting right here, but he isn't. I think that these people should be here in the meeting to help us move forward more effectively.
Okay. I don't believe they should, it should be a blanket request that they're here at every council meeting. I just don't think it's fiscally responsible. I think that, well, I've been told that they are getting paid overtime. It adds up. Once it hits 80 hours, it's either converted into cash or into time.
And point of order, this has been asked and answered and discussed. Just please give your opinion and don't re-argue something.
I'm just stating what I've heard, and that's why I wouldn't vote for this.
Okay, fine.
So, and I don't think that's out of order, Councillor Reuter. That is what that's what the CAO has told me, and he's a trained auditor. So no, my feeling is that
he doesn't have much experience in municipal
Sorry,
government.
let me finish?
Let's just say that.
Excuse me, can you let me finish, please? So I don't believe that we should be paying overtime or having staff attend these meetings unless it's requested. So that's my feeling. Any other comments?
Yes,
Councillor Bout.
it's not overtime.
Councillor Bout.
Yeah, I did, and I've lost it. I'm sorry, I was interrupted here. So just.
Okay, if there's no other comments, we can call the question.
Pardon me. Okay, I'm sorry. I recognize that there is valuable information that can be provided by the Public Works Manager. I also recognize that we have an agenda and it's quite predictable where that information may be required. So I would hope that we would, out of respect and efficiency, that we would put any information that we needed at the beginning of a meeting or at a specified time, or that the CAO ask of the Public Works Manager ahead of time, the answer to the question or whatever the information is, and bring that to the meeting. So I'm just saying it has to be more effective and more efficient and more responsible.
Okay, Councillor Adams.
Final word. I'm just glancing down this agenda. There's umpteen reasons why we need both the CAO, CFO, as well as the works manager in the meeting tonight. And he should have been, if that's the process, he should have been asked to attend. So I want to know why he was told not to attend, if that's what I'm being told. And I believe that's what I just got told. So I think the only way to fix this, so we don't come to these meetings each time without the right person in the room, is to make the default the other way. He comes unless someone says we do not need you tonight. And I don't know who that someone is, because clearly tonight that someone got it wrong.
Okay, Councillor Reuter.
Yeah, I would reiterate that we just had a closed where we would have benefited from the works manager's presence. Where I don't think, Michael, that we're going to be able to arrange our schedule or agenda such that we can anticipate every occasion in which he would be helpful to have on board. I think we should simply have him here, as has always been the practice, and move forward that way.
Okay, I'll just repeat again. I was told, as an example, there was one meeting that our works manager was credited for 5 hours of overtime, and it just seemed ridiculous. And so, no, I wouldn't be able to approve a blanket statement that says the staff are required to be at these council meetings. So I'll call the question now. All those in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Those opposed?
Opposed?
Motion defeated.
While we're on the subject, can I put forward another resolution?
Well, I think we actually got a little off track there. So
Okay, but
it's the adoption of the agenda. So let's get back on track. Is there any other items?
okay, I'd like to add something to new business, and the discussion will be staff overtime at meetings. I'll bring it up then.
I've got something under the agenda.
Sorry, can you give me some background on that if we're going to have that?
I'm going to ask, and we're going to do it now, but you want to do it later. I'm going to ask that we get the CFO to come to council and present a report that demonstrates how staff are compensated for attending these meetings.
Okay, let's add that to new business. I'm fine with that. Anyone else have a problem with that?
I'm good.
Okay.
Question on the agenda?
You want to go ahead? Go ahead, Michael. I'll go after you then.
No, well, I'm moving adoption of the agenda.
I've got a couple of points on the agenda.
All right.
before we
That's
go.
all right.
Oh, okay,
Yep.
go ahead.
10A and B, I would ask again that there be no verbal reports. I'd like to see written reports so that the public.
Sorry, do you want to add that to new business?
I'm saying that I don't want to have any verbal reports under A and B.
This is the agenda. So
Yes.
what are we adding?
I'm deleting, I'm saying if there's no written report in here, which I don't see, then I presume and don't wish to receive any verbal reports.
Well, I've got 2 reports to give. So
Well,
I don't see, this has been, I mean, when someone has a report to give, do we want to deny the gallery and the village?
do you want me to answer that question? I'll answer your question, which is that that reports that are verbal should be far and few between, or very short pieces, but that you often have pieces of paper there that you pull out that are pre-printed, and then you launch into a verbal report, sometimes which end up being speeches of a sort. And if you've got it written up, then I want to see it in the agenda written.
Okay, so the motion is to not allow verbal reports.
Except under exceptional circumstance, I think I heard.
Well,
Yeah.
I've got 2 reports. The CAO couldn't make it tonight. He asked me to report on his behalf. I think it's fair to report out on that. And I also have my information that I'd like to give, which has also come, and I think it's.
Have you got it written there?
I can give you a copy of it.
No, I don't want a copy of it. I want you to include those in the package and have those ready so that we can consider them in the public and see them ahead of time and stop with this verbal stuff that comes and just follow the rules that everyone else does.
Well, I don't think that's a rule that we're not allowed to report out. I'll endeavor to bring that as early as possible then. I'll make an effort on that, but you know, we've all got busy schedules and look, if I can offer up information that's valuable, but
Are
Well,
you,
the very worst, wouldn't the
Point of
file be on the
clarification.
table?
yeah.
just clarification, are you suggesting that it would be the information that was available up until the deadline for the agenda? That would be in writing?
I think that
And then if there's subsequent information that would come on table?
there's,
But
sure,
But they're not coming on table either. On
Yeah.
table means here it is, it's on the table.
yeah. They're being read in the meeting at some point at point 10, and they're not on table items. So we've had no chance to study them, and no one else who's looked at the agenda on the website has had a chance to do it. It seems to be a habit, and I'm not prepared to go along with it any further. Can I just say,
Yeah.
I've got a couple of other points, which is
Okay.
number 13 under policies and procedures. I don't know what that is. I've never seen that on an agenda before. It doesn't conform with our procedures bylaw as to the order of an agenda. So I would move we
I'm
strike
fine
that.
with striking that.
Yep, okay, thank you. One more thing. Under point 14, which is correspondence, there's a bunch of verbiage there that I don't know how this crept in here, but it's not something that we've ever had before. I would suggest that we go back to what it used to say, which was simply that under correspondence, it'll show a list of correspondence up to whatever given date, and that the following actions be taken with respect to the correspondence. And that we remove A, B, and C and simply put that back in.
Okay, that was put in by Mr. Tobin prior to his departure, and he felt that in the correspondence section that we got off track in our agenda, and it ended up being a long and drawn out process that wasn't beneficial to the village. And so that's where that came from, and it's fully within
There's
the
a
right
point of information. I believe it's been in our last 6 agendas, something like that.
Yeah, I've mentioned it before. I've never liked it. It seems to me to circumscribe in some way in which correspondence is handled or discussed, or and I think we should keep that as open as possible, that this is something that seems to constrict and limit how correspondence, which is the voices of residents largely, are met and discussed here. And I think that should be struck.
Through the mayor.
yes.
The correspondence is published and available and addended to the minutes or to the agenda. And available to everyone ahead of time. To have us sit here and read the correspondence doesn't seem effective. And
Not what I'm saying.
what I've been doing is I've been doing a summary of the type of topics that people have written in on. And last week I did take the liberty of honoring one of our residents who had passed away in the previous couple of weeks before the meeting. But otherwise, I mean, since I have taken over this role, the second quarter, I'm giving a summary of, there were 3 letters to do with this, and so if someone is then interested in going and reading again the letters, they can certainly do so. The letters are provided. The residents have a forum to write and express their opinions, and that's honored. So
Acknowledge all. I just want to get rid of the restrictive verbiage here.
Can I?
Unclear.
Is there any other?
Yeah, I wasn't bothered to one way or the other until what I heard Michael just said. And now I am concerned. I think every resident that writes in should be acknowledged, what they're writing about. We don't have to read, we don't read every single one. But if Michael's just going to paraphrase, we've got 3 of those and 4 of that, that's not what we expect.
Let's stick to the agenda here.
Excuse me,
So we're adding,
through the chair, The list of letters includes a topic. And so I, certainly believe that that's appropriate. And anyway, okay.
All right, let's get back to business, okay? I think we've gone on long enough here. So do we have a motion to adopt the agenda with the additions of the First Nations and the staff?
I've got one other one that I just realised as we were looking through there. There was supposed to be a resolution about a grant extension.
Right.
Where is it?
I believe it is. The council approve a letter to be written to Ministry of Municipal.
Sorry, I found it under, yeah, okay.
Okay. All right, we'll call the question.
Just one second.
All those,
Just 1 second. We also have, I think, approval of minutes that haven't actually been included in the package.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah.
I was going to deal with that when we got to it.
Okay.
You strike it now if you like.
that's B,
Yeah, 7B would have to be struck.
strike those. Okay. All right, call the question. All those in favor with the additions of the First Nations and the staff discussion?
Yes.
Okay. Aye, motion carries. Okay, we'll open it up to public participation. We'll start with the gallery. Any questions, comments? Okay, if you want to open it up to the online guests.
First one is Jamie.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. A couple things. First, a comment on the lack of the absenteeism of both the CFO and the PWO. I have to concur that it is vital to have the works yard manager available. It seems remiss to not have him there. It would also seem that he is the one currently on village staff that would have the most knowledge about the policies and procedures and conduct of meetings and how they should be conducted. So that would be beneficial just from my perspective. And secondly, after reviewing the minutes, there was a notification about my question of the on-table correspondence from the closed meeting that was presented by Councillor Broughton. It was noted in the public participation comment portion of it, but I didn't see that reflected in any other portion of the minutes. And I'm still curious to get an answer on whether those should be included in public record. So if I could get an answer on that or a comment on how we are moving along to find an answer on that, that would be great. Thank you.
Okay. Next.
Is Eric Meeks, sorry.
Next.
You can next, yes.
You next.
So before I kind of jump into the crux of my inquiry, I'd like to find out what the protocol is when a village, a taxpayer in the village sends a correspondence to either the mayor, the councillors, or the CAO. What typically happens with that correspondence?
Councillor Broughton, this is your quarter. Do you want to?
Okay, depends on how it's sent. If it's sent to individual councillors, they deal with it directly. If it's, communication back and forth, if it's sent to more than 2 councillors, and typically someone will send it to reception and all council, then it's put on the next agenda, provided it's received prior to noon on the Thursday before the meeting. It's put on the next agenda, and then subsequent to that agenda, the councillor responsible for responding will respond to each of the letters that have been received. So
Okay.
I recognize that you have sent a letter. And
Yes, I sent an email on February the 28th. The email was addressed to Mayor Barry, councillors Reuter, Broughton, and Abbott, as well
Right.
as the CAO, Mr. Miller. and it was an inquiry and a follow-up to the last meeting where some commitments were made to contact Dave, and to follow up on the building inspector. I find it that it was sent to a number of people, but there was not even an acknowledgement that the email was received. There was no response.
Could I address that? I'm sorry, there has not been a protocol of people respond of receipt of emails, and it's something that I've raised before and that I will address again in terms of acknowledging. I mean, otherwise it looks like it's gone into the ether sphere, right?
Yeah, it's unacceptable.
It has been received by all the people who you sent it to.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank
you for that. I sent it a week ago, and it would have been good to know that the receipt of the email was received. Right. When it was sent out. I mean, certainly, I know there's been some discussion about the CAO having lots to do during the week. Well, certainly one of those things that he could be potentially doing is responding to inquiries from people who are sending inquiries to him from the village.
Fair enough.
All right, point well taken, and I think we need to obviously look into that and do a better job.
And so the point of my question, though, is to find out, last council meeting, Mayor Barry, you had indicated that you had not heard about Dave Butler's offer to come and work for free, and that was raised as an issue at the last meeting. The email was to find out what discussions have taken place with Mr. Butler subsequent to the last meeting, which occurred 2 weeks ago. Okay,
I'll just confirm. I did not hear about any offer like that subsequent to that. The last time we discussed that, I did hear that he had put an ultimatum to the village, and the village wasn't able to fulfill that. And I think that was confirmed by discussions with councillor, and so there is other areas that the CAO is working on right now. He's been interviewing candidates, and I believe he's also looking at the potential for engineers or architects to sign off on some of these required.
So I appreciate that update, but I mean, that's not new information. That information was shared at the last meeting 2 weeks ago. It sounds like there really hasn't been any progress. Now it's been a month since Dave Butler has resigned, and we still don't have anyone in place, or it doesn't sound like we're any closer to having anyone in place to take over his responsibilities. So we can continue with the work of people in the village who are looking to renovate or build their homes.
Eric, it's being worked on. I'm giving you the best update that I have. I know the CAO also mentioned in discussions with him today, because I was asking the question again. What's going to happen? He says he's going to be reaching out to each of the individuals, and I think such as yourself and others, and discussing the options of having an engineer or architect sign off on it. But I know he is working on it on a daily basis, so I know it's no consolation, but please expect a phone call from him sometime this week. That's what he said. He would reach out to everyone. So
that would be great. A phone call. I'd probably prefer a phone call as well as an email, so that I have something in writing.
Good enough.
Eric, if I can jump in here, I spoke with Dave in the last week, as I was tasked with doing, and asked him if he would reconsider or if he would come back. Unfortunately, he said that his original conditions held. He would love to come back. He feels very badly about this, but he reiterated his original conditions, and I'm afraid that those conditions are unacceptable to some at this table. So they're acceptable to me, but they're unacceptable to others. And just to be clear, again, that Dave's offer was communicated to the CAO on February 10th. And he was asked to transmit this to the mayor. And apparently that did not occur. I can't comment as to why or how that fell apart, but that Dave's offer was communicated far in advance of the article appearing in the watershed. And so that would go back 1 month. So I sympathize with the spot you're in, and you're likely one of many. There seems to me would have been an easy solution to this, a great solution, but it hasn't been taken up, unfortunately.
Okay. I would say it's unfortunate that you even make those comments. So one of the stipulations was that we either not hire or let someone go that's in the room here tonight. So it just was unacceptable. And so with that, look, let's move on to other business. Do we have any others? Thank you very much, Art.
Tamara Leger, so just 1 second. Go ahead, Tamara.
Hi, I have a cash flow and a revenue question for you tonight. So it's unfortunate that the acting CFO is not in the room. However, my questions still stand. My first question is, where are the utility bills? And how much will this delay cost us? And the second cash flow revenue question that I have is, where are the system generated accounts payable or AP reports from Q4 from last year, showing the roll down detail of all the checks paid out? This has been done for most councils in the past and was implemented by the previous council well into its I guess last year, but it's an established tradition that we do an AP report, and I haven't seen anything from Q4 just to show detail on the larger checks and the larger payouts that typically are included in the report. So those are my two cash flow revenue questions. I'm really worried, as I'm sure you are. I know there's other business, but cash flow and revenue and utility bills is our income, and I know that we make a great 5% on that, on the bank accounts, but we need the income in order to offset the spending. So really, I would love to know, where are the utility bills? Where are things at with the utility bills? How much is the delay costing? And when can we look forward to seeing the accounts payable from Q4? It's just a simple system generated. You push a button, it's generated by the system. So it doesn't take more, I think, than 15 minutes. There's nothing special that needs to be tabulated or generated. It's pretty simple to do within the accounting system that's used. So I'm really hoping those are two easy questions that can be answered. Thank you.
Can we go?
Yeah, go ahead.
I can help you out with the AP reports one. Tamara, it goes back further than the last council. We've had AP reports in the village for a long time. I don't know when they started. They actually died on the last council at one point, until someone asked me when last I'd seen one, and we took a resolution to bring it back. So it did get reinvented in the last council. But I think we did receive Q4 AP report. Did we not? Q4 last year. Have you ever seen an AP report? Yes, you have. So we've got. Yeah. So I think the next one due would be Q1 this year.
The APR report I saw, I don't know if it was Q4.
No, it's Q3.
Yeah.
Was it Q3?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I'm not sure.
I'll take that back. So you're right.
Q4 has never made it to the public package or has been published from a public perspective.
Okay, that's very helpful. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that.
So we can do that for the next meeting. You're right. It is easy. Just push a button. We can do it for the next meeting.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tamara, for that. And I know the CAO is working on the budget now, and we'll be presenting it to the finance committee as well as the council. So thank you for that. Pass on. Suggestions.
And the utility bills, I think, are pending. I think there's a slight delay, but there will be no penalty or anything for that.
Sorry, Ken, did I
Well,
just hear you say the CFO was going to present the budget to the finance committee?
Yeah, I'll report that under the CAO's report.
I would certainly hope that wouldn't be the case. I would certainly hope he's bringing it to council.
Excuse me.
We'll talk about
We'll
it.
talk about that later on. Any other questions?
Yeah, we have Don Mitchell.
Don Mitchell?
Sorry, can I just touch on one other thing Tamara said about the utility bills? There is not a slight delay, it is a significant delay, and it is a cash flow issue. She's correct on those terms.
Yeah.
Don, if you're there?
Yeah,
Sorry, we can't
hi.
hear you. Hi.
Oh, you can hear me?
Now we can.
Now we
hear you.
can, yeah.
Now you can hear me. Perfect. So hi, I'm Dawn Mitchell. I've been living in Lions Bay for 9 years. I try to attend most meetings, and when I don't, I do watch them after hours. So I watched the meeting, the last general meeting that happened, and I had a few concerns that I wanted to bring up. First of all, I want to start by saying that because this may come off wrong. So I'm a little concerned about the new bear bylaw rules that are coming in. Now, I love bears. I've been around bears my whole life. I grew up in a small Laurentian town. I've always lived near bears and with bears. And I am really impressed with the bear committee's ability to teach and support our villagers. But my concern related to this is more related to the fact that there's this idea that there's no cost to this new bylaw. And when I actually look back, because I've been watching the meeting since last spring, there was a cost. When this new change to our waste management happened, a bylaw officer was asked to come in early on Fridays, was asked to come in early enough to check on garbage and support villagers in their garbage. Now you can say, well, the bylaws were doing cars. Well, they don't do cars at 6 in the morning on Friday. And I was there at that meeting when they actually said, well, we'll need 2 bylaw officers because we need a bylaw officer to work late on Fridays and we need one to work early. So that's a cost. Now I know Nye last time said, I think he got misquoted because I know some of our counselors were saying, well, Nye said that there's no added cost. Well, that's not true. What he said was there's no change from the costs from last year. Those are different things. The added cost was put in last year's budget because these new rules were put in last year. There was just no bylaw to support it. So that's one of my concerns is related to that. And then on top of that, there's also the cost of the management of tickets. So if we're now giving out bylaw tickets, our people who work in the office have to manage those tickets. That's part of their job. They're having to take those tickets, follow up with the villagers who have been ticketed, and then the cost of maybe even going after those villagers when they're not paying those tickets. That's a cost. And then what I don't know, and this one you guys could let me know, is do we pay shift differentials? Because if we pay shift differentials, having somebody come in early costs more money. Having the works crew come in early on Fridays so that people can drop their garbage off early because they're not able to comply with the times they're supposed to put it out. That's an added cost. And then even aside all that, let's say that turns out to not be that much money. We also have to take into account that we're doing a renegotiation for our garbage pickup this year. Now, if we're renegotiating for garbage pickup and we're telling them we have all this complicated pickup, you have to do this street at this time and this street at that time. And I know they make errors because they've come to my street way early many times and I've had to call or report it. So then there must be, maybe there isn't currently, but there could be a cost for them to come back and collect my garbage because they came at 8:30 instead of 9. So there's a cost in negotiating with companies to do the pickup if we're giving them all these extra rules around the pickup. And then actually to me, even worse than that is the cost to residents. So I am a lucky person. I don't work Fridays. I can put my garbage out within the rules. So I follow it because you know what? I like the Bears. And I do think that maybe it can help for those that can do it. But I can't take a job Friday. I can't work Friday because I can't put my garbage out within those allotted times if I'm going into my health office and working. I can only work Fridays. So people who have two families, two mom and dad working outside of the home, it's really hard for them to comply. That's a challenge to them. That's a cost to them. And then the other concern I had was the idea that because people, I think 99%, I forget the quote, but 90% or more of people complied, right? That's great. That's awesome. But compliance is not the same as supporting. So I complied, but I don't necessarily support it. So what I would have really liked to see is a reach out to the community and find out how the community feels. If they feel that this is something they can do, maybe even something they want to pay for. I'm absolutely open to that. I think that if the villagers vote to say, yeah, you know what, we want to do this. We're even willing to pay to do this. Great. But I think making the bylaw without asking the villagers first, without actually doing an analysis of the cost is a concern. That's not, to me, due diligence. And then I know I'm probably running out on time, but the other thing that concerns me is the idea that, and again, I don't know if that was Bear Aware or where it was put out, that we can remove all attractants in the village. That is impossible. Growing up around bears eat new grass shoots in the spring. Are we going to put concrete throughout the village so there's no grass? Are we going to cut down all the spruce trees? Bears eat spruce buds, the new buds at the beginning of the spring. That's part of their spring food. Are we going to cut out all the blackberry bushes? What about the huckleberries and the salmon berries? All that is bear food. And it's the reason that we live with bears, the reason this is their habitat is the food here, the natural food here is their attractant. And so we get rid of it all. I'm out of time. I'm sorry.
Thank you very much, Dawn. I know you're passionate about this and we all are. So, but thank you very much for those comments. And sorry to interrupt you there. Is there any others before we move on?
Oh, Carmen Lisa.
I would like to speak, but there's no hand at the bottom of my computer. So Norma Rogers needs a hand.
Hi, Carmen. I think, go ahead. You're on.
No?
Hello, thank you. Just a couple things, just jumping.
Who was that?
Can you hear me?
Norma Rogers.
Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead, yes.
Okay, just jumping back to the start of the meeting, I just wanted to highlight a couple things. Just the comments that Councillor Abbott and Reuter made. I definitely agree with their sentiments. Just seeing the tone of the room, I think there has to be better communication. Just going to summarize it, leave it there. Secondly, hearing Eric about responding to residents. Again, I have to echo his sentiments. It is extremely frustrating when commitments are made and timelines are not given. And again, just open-ended sort of timelines. The residents do need answers to questions before the next meeting. And again, I guess that ties into Councillor Broughton's comments about, and I'm just questioning this, make sure I understand this correctly, but when you commented about how emails or who's to respond, and Eric's comments, well, he's responded and he's basically calling the group out saying, I want an email and I want a phone call, because people are saying to you as a group, they're not hearing the responses that they need in a timely fashion. And another little tidbit I want to give is that I appreciate, at least with the gallery, there were some hands today, but for Mayor Barry, a lot of times the gallery section, there is not enough time for people to respond, and I find you're moving on too quickly. So I'm just suggesting that when you do reach out and ask the gallery to speak, that you give them a 30-second window to ensure, because some people are not familiar with Zoom, do not know how to access it, raise the hand as we just heard. And sometimes I think people are not being heard because they just aren't given enough time to get the hand up if they don't know the system. again, utility bills, I have to agree with that as well, like just where we are with things, because people, just like as council, you forecast for the 12 months ahead. People need to know what cost they're going to be hit with. And as someone else said earlier, it's revenue generating for the village. So the longer we don't have people in play, it's costing us more. Likewise, again, with the comment about, you know, people not being asked to attend the meeting, when your knowledge or your people that are the sort of at the helm that have the knowledge, have the answers, are not allowed, I guess is the sentiment tonight, to be at the meeting, it costs us more. One simple decision could save us thousands of dollars. So again, I just want to echo the sentiments and thank you for my time.
Thank you.
Norman Rogers is.
Norma Rogers.
Norma?
Hello. Hello. I'm wondering why I don't have a hand icon, but that's not what I wanted to say. I'm responding to a statement read last council meeting because Randy, no last name, referred to the outrage group and I am a member. Contrary to Randy's assertion, it is not about who was elected. It is about council's actions. Last election, 1/3 of eligible residents failed to vote. 1/3 voted for McLaughlin, 1/3 voted for Barry, and Barry won by 18 votes. So only 1/3 of voters supported change. With a slim mandate and no experience at the council table, we had hoped Mayor Barry would take time to assess the situation before he led council to consequential and costly changes. We are outraged about a number of things. Outrage number one, staff loss. 2/3 of residents were satisfied with the village management and a happy, stable workforce for the last 7 years. But within weeks of the election, a united council terminated De Jong, and that resulted in 4 other key staff leaving. We lost a lot of expertise, including a certified water treatment operator slated to replace our current operator when he retires. And the cost of terminating CIO. How will the village afford a 6-figure payout to De Jong, since he had a council-approved contract with 18 months remaining? Outrage number 2, not understanding municipal rules. Council is required to follow the community charter rules. Randy complained that discussions about the hiring freeze wasted council time, but the issue needed to be debated. Resolutions such as canceling the hiring freeze need to be brought to open council meetings for discussion, motion, adoption, and then included in the minutes as a formal record. Just making a resolution in a closed meeting leaves the issue in limbo because there is no public record. This debate was about following the rules to properly cancel the hiring freeze so that council could legitimately hire recent staff. Randy stated, some councillors are holding the village hostage to the rules. Yes, they are trying to protect procedures in accordance with the community charter. Now, outrage number 3, cronyism. Residents are accustomed to management and staff being hired based on municipal qualifications, not their relationship to mayor or council. Without government experience, it is a challenge to follow the community charter, as we are finding.
Okay, thank you, Norma. Any other comments? Any other?
Now we have the delegation.
Okay, we'll move to the delegation and I believe that's Ryan and Ryan.
Riley.
Yeah.
Riley and Riley, okay.
Want to stand here? Is this the?
Yep,
That's
perfect.
Perfect.
All right.
You're formal looking.
That's right. Well, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to speak to you. In the agenda package, you have an application, a grant application for the events committee, the Lions Bay Events Committee. I am Ryan Bruce. This is Riley Dar. We are your Lions Bay Events Committee co-chairs. And so we thought it would be a good idea, since you've got the application in front of you, and obviously there's lots of residents listening in, to kind of show up in person and talk a little bit about our first 3 major events. We're coming up on our first year as co-chairs, not quite there yet. We've got one more event that'll be our first time running, which is the Easter event coming up. But we just wanted to give you a little bit of insight into our thinking in terms of managing the affairs of the events committee, managing events generally, and what we're trying to do. And I think the village is sort of built on a sense of community and bringing people together. So we've got kind of our core committee made up of, I think we're kind of around 10 or so people involved in that. And then over the course of the last 3 major events, I think we estimated around 60 to 75 volunteers have participated in some fashion. And that, people ranging from ages, your young kids, or I guess your teenage kids who would come to oversee some of the younger kids at events, as well as seniors involved and a whole host of people. So it's been really great to be able to not only bring people together at the event itself, but also in the lead up to and in the planning and organizing of the events. One other example, I guess, was the dads that came together to put on the Halloween haunted house. Sort of a lot of work, and I think we underestimated the amount of work that goes into putting on the Halloween event by itself. And so we needed a whole nother crew of people. And of course, who better to scare the kids than dads, right? So we were able to pull a good number of them together. For this next year, we've sort of committed ourselves, and it is in the document, to keep the core events that the village, I think, is really excited about going. That would be our Easter event, which is coming up, Canada Day, which is a big one and well attended. Halloween, actually, as we view it now, is sort of like 3 events, really. It's the kids, day and all the activities at the hall. We had what was a great Halloween party that night for the adults, and then fireworks on Halloween night. So again, it's sort of like 3 events in one. But we're going to continue to, as a group, we've decided that we're going to continue to do that and build upon the success of those events. And then the 4th one, Halloween. Oh, and then the polar bear, of course, which
huge success.
Another good turnout we had there. I guess I should also mention, there's been a lot of support. I think we both feel great about all the past chairs of the events committee who have supported us and helped us understand and learn what's important to the village and sort of the little tricks of how to get things done and where to go. And so it's a big shout out to past volunteers and chairs helping guide us and sort of teach us the ropes as we go. The other big thing I'll mention is just that we are also open to new ideas. Trivia night is the other one.
Trivia night.
Right?
That's great.
And we all are also open to new ideas. We've got a few different things I won't announce now, but that are kind of in the hopper that we're working through. There's a good stretch between Canada Day and Halloween where there's not a lot happening, but we can see some fun, perhaps summertime events that we may add to that calendar. But again, I'm not going to commit us or announce anything today. You have to stay tuned or come back to hear that announcement another time. Anything you want to add in there? Put you on the spot, sorry.
Yeah, no, you did a great job of summarizing it. It's just been an incredible year, like learning the ropes, and it feels like it's been the absolute perfect time coming out of what was a very antisocial few years with COVID, and we've had just incredible turnouts. Obviously, Ryan and I are newer to the village, being like around 3 years in the village, so we didn't unfortunately have the benefit of seeing in person what was done in the past, but we feel really proud of every single event that's been executed, and have already had our first meeting of the year with our team to really sit down and go, what were the great things, what were the things we can learn from and edit and improve, save money, and how do we make this year even better. And we think it's a huge benefit to the village as a whole to bring people together. And like Ryan said, we're open to ideas. We're brainstorming, how do we reach different demographics? How do we, do things in the hall? How do we do them out in the summertime? And so, if anybody ever does have ideas, we're definitely all ears. So.
All right. And so the request on the application is for $6,000, as well as the in-kind support that public works staff and other staff in the office provide to us. And I guess we should also mention that, while we are kind of focused on event planning, we are also raising money through sponsors. And our focus is to continue to build that program. We don't want to take too much away from event planning, but where we do get sponsors, what we're trying to do is get a commitment for 5 years. So we're sort of have them locked in for 5 years. And that allows us to kind of focus on where we're at. So our belief with the budget we've got, the $6,000 would get us off to a great start for this year. And then we would hope to, like I said, build in other sponsorship money into that package. So
one additional thing that we have been doing is we've had a photographer at each of our events to capture, which I've been posting into the Facebook group, but the goal this year is to actually create an events committee website that will properly highlight that and hopefully be able to help us bring in more sponsorship outside of the village and try to be as self-sufficient as we can. But yeah, we're definitely excited about these events, but need the village's help in order to execute them, especially this year while we're still getting our feet off the, or whatever the expression is, taking flight.
Yeah, taking flight.
You've done a wonderful job. The enthusiasm and that you're bringing to the table, I know, especially through, following on COVID and the former villagers that were in your shoes have been extremely complimentary of your guys' efforts and just the way you've pulled things together. So good job. Congratulations. Yeah. And I think we'll let the council discuss, but I would support getting behind you guys as much as possible. And it's good to hear that you've got sponsorships and such that are coming to the table as well. So that's encouraging.
Yeah. So thank you for coming ahead of the budget discussions, which will begin next week, I believe, and so very timely. And certainly there's never been a more important time for good news happening within the community. Post-COVID, people are just ready to get out there, but also in light of what you're seeing tonight, having a little good news and positive and happiness would be a delightful thing happening for the village. So thank you for your contribution to that.
If you guys have any questions as you're reviewing our application, you've got our contact information. So
yeah,
feel free to reach
okay.
out.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, just also thanks guys. There's some fun events last year. The grant applications aren't in the package, by the way. Yours isn't on the agenda, so we haven't seen it.
Oh, okay.
It didn't make the agenda. They normally are one of the early budget items that we do, so we should have done it by now. But I guess we might be getting them all at the same time. Or I think the mayor's about to report on that in a bit. So we haven't actually seen it.
okay.
Okay, so just in case you think what's wrong with these people, we haven't seen it, but yeah, I think you're going to generally get support. I think we're all in favour. Some of us have got more favourite events than others, but yeah, thanks for everything you've done, Master.
You bet.
Thank you.
It's a big team behind us. It's not just us as well, as we mentioned. So big shout out to all the volunteers and the committee. So thanks.
That's great.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item number 7 on the agenda, and that's a review and approval of the minutes. And that would be, do we have a motion to approve February 21st?
So moved.
7 minutes. Second.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
Who wants to go first? Should I go?
Sure, go ahead now.
Okay. Item 7. Item 7C. So I don't believe this is accurate to what happened, and I'd like to see it corrected. It says Councillor Michael Brown provided until copies of the closed special council meeting of December 8th for all of council, and then it goes on to say moved and seconded. Special council meetings be approved as circulated and carried. Those minutes were certainly not approved, circulated and carried. I think that there was quite a strong opinion it was where they should not have been on table. It was inappropriate. And I think there was what was carried was a request that the CAO go away and confirm whether that was appropriate action. So I would suggest we just strike all of that because none of it's true.
I would add further to that point that
Which one is that?
Where are we?
7C on page 10. I would add further to that point that those minutes were not even on table. An on table item has to come at the beginning. This was a disclosure of closed minutes or an attempted disclosure of closed minutes into an open meeting. that was completely inappropriate and was, it was noted at the time. So we best just strike it from the minutes or reflect the objections.
Councillor Brown?
Okay, I believe that I indicated at the time that those were being provided as they had been requested in open meeting in a previous meeting. I'm not sure how, if I was clear on that, but I believe on February 15th, Councillor Reuter asked that in mention to do with the ending of the blanking here for a second.
Don't go there.
Sorry, can I make a point of order?
Sure.
Can we approve the minutes? Can we talk about what happened in the last meeting? Not what you hoped to do or wanted to do, what you actually did. You did not do what you just said. And we did not receive those minutes, and they certainly were not carried. Can we please strike that item?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with it. They weren't minutes they were closed minutes which were not intended for the open meeting. Is that correct?
That is exactly correct.
Right.
They should never have appeared there.
Right.
So can we strike item 7C, please?
I'm good with
Councillor
that.
Brown?
Yeah, I'm comfortable with that.
Okay. Strike that.
Yeah, that certainly is not.
Okay, Councillor Reuter, over to you. Any?
Neville might have some.
Yeah, I have one. Item 10B, Mayor's Report. It says the Mayor read into correspondence of by-election sent to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs the day after the resignation of Councillor Norm Barmeyer. That's not what happened. The letter that's referred to was sent on February the 17th to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. So it suggested reads, assistance, regular correspondence requesting assistance of by-election sent to the Ministry of Affairs on February the 17th. Strike the part about Councillor Norm Barmeyer, and it finishes with, and as it previously says, and advised that the follow-up meeting would happen on February 23rd.
Sounds right.
I'm good with that.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Sorry, the next one's going to have to be a matter arising. It's on the bylaws and on the garbage recycling. I'll come back to that. On 15B, I went and listened to the recording to make sure I got this right. We discussed, this is about the posting of the CAO, CFO positions. I listened to it more than once just to make sure. As often happens when we have changes, friendly amendments, we don't always go and read the entire thing at the end. But I think what's written here is not accurate, and it would be more accurate if it read, Council directs the acting CAO, CFO to post for a village manager / CAO position as soon as possible. That was carried. And then further, the council directs the acting CEO, CFO to post for chief financial officer / treasurer as soon as possible. I think if it read that way, that would be a more accurate sort of recording of what we agreed to.
I'd support that.
I'm fine with that.
I'm good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else, Councillor Abbott?
And no, other than I've got one under business arising, but if we come to that.
Councillor Reuter?
Yeah, I might be doubling up here a bit. Let me just go back. Okay, we've done that. Page 12. Yeah, under the action that I was to contact the Ministry of Finance regarding the speculation and vacancy tax. That's not accurate. I simply said that I would take lead on this, not in particular that I would be only contacting the Ministry of Finance. So I said I'd take lead on it, I think. If you're all comfortable with that.
Sorry, what does take lead mean?
That means that I will take the lead on it and that you will support me. That was the discussion that we had. I may be contacting the Ministry of Finance, but I wouldn't restrict myself to that.
Because it's two different things. So we're changing the meaning of the minutes there, if that's what you're asking.
Yeah, the words I used was I will take the lead on it.
And I think yeah.
That would be one item.
I don't know if I'm comfortable with it, that general, you taking the lead on that. We've seen that before, and sometimes it ends up with some uncomfortable results coming back to us. So
What is that? I mean, go listen to the video. I said, I'll take lead and then you will support me in that. And you chimed in affirmatively to that. That's all it is.
okay, just again, careful on how you reach out. That's my only caution. Okay, I'm fine with that.
I do not accept any cautions. I'm sorry.
Okay, we're approving minutes, so.
Yeah.
Okay, well then,
Yeah.
taking the, all right.
If we want to discuss it further, it should come up in the matters arising or something.
Yeah.
Let's just approve the minutes.
Under 12A, I think we should correct the part there under moved seconded under the bylaws that.
Okay, so I've got that under matters arising,
Okay,
because I think I did say it this way, but it's not accurate.
Okay.
I'm going to correct it under matters arising.
okay. I thought that okay.
No, I made a mistake. I misspoke.
Okay.
I'll correct it under matters arising.
And then just one final.
If you are about to say the same thing.
Okay. Under 258, which is at the top of page 12, I don't think it's the case that Councillor Broughton provided on-table wording. He, again, this goes to the question of what on-table is. Councillor,
Where are we now?
we're at the top of page 12 under updates. Number 258, that was the update at
Okay.
that time.
Yeah.
They weren't provided on table. On table would mean that they came at the beginning of the meeting as an on table item. They weren't on table. They were handed out at some point during the meeting and therefore.
Are we
I'm still
talking,
not seeing the.
what are we
So
talking
are we
about?
talking number 9, 258?
We're talking number 9.
9A, 258.
Yeah, at the top of page 12 of the.
First Nations acknowledgement agendas?
It's updates to action items included. And there's under item 258 from that meeting.
I'm with you now.
It shouldn't say on table because they weren't on table. They were provided further on in the meeting and were not on table. So I think it should just read provided.
The word provided, sure. I'm
Yeah.
fine with saying provided. I don't know where you are in the agenda, so
Yeah,
that's
I
fine.
found it now.
Yeah, top of page 12 under item 258.
It's page 13 on mine.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, just strike the word.
I accept that. That's wherever it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I got.
Okay, before we approve, can I just talk about the matter arising? I want to bring up just to make sure it is what you were going to say, Marcus, because I don't know what you had in mind. So under 12A bylaws, it says we would bring back the garbage and bear bylaw for a first and, sorry, we read it for a first and second time, and it would be read for a third, fourth time at the next meeting. I think what I actually said, a third time and adoption at the next meeting, I think that's the correction.
Yes.
I didn't say fourth, I said adoption.
Yeah.
So that's the correction. The matter arising is, of course, I should not have said that because we can't do a reading and an adoption in the same night. So the matter arising is tonight, we can only do the final reading. We'd have to have come back to the next meeting for adoption, or if need be, have a special meeting.
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Okay, any other changes?
For me,
Okay, all those in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Aye.
As amended, of course.
As amended, yeah.
Okay, motion carried. Business arising. Okay. Item number 9, unfinished
Can I just bring up something under business arising in the minutes there? One thing we didn't discuss is that I believe the CFO posting, so we don't have anything on that. Do we for this meeting?
I don't know of anything. I think I understand it's been posted. It's been posted, yeah.
Only one position's been posted. I looked this afternoon, I can only see one.
Yeah, that was my take as well. I think we saw a CAO posting and
Yep.
not a CFO posting.
Correct. I saw only a CAO posted.
Sorry, I thought you meant the building inspector.
CAO and building inspector been posted. The CFO has not been posted. So we should put on to the outstanding items, I guess. That resolution was only partly complied with.
Okay.
CFO posting has not gone up.
And Karen, did you just say the building inspector had been posted?
Yeah,
And where's that been posted?
same place.
It was posted at civics info, multi info net, the website.
Again, as to all the people who are waiting for this position to be filled desperately, as of Friday, there had been no reach out to the BOA BC, which is most likely first area that you'd reach out to. So I don't know why that hasn't been done. That should probably be pursued.
We'll mention that to him.
Yeah.
Mr. Miller had mentioned he's also reached out to some various groups, so he is conducting an outreach program. So
Okay.
why don't we make sure he's following up on that?
For a point of information, what is the BOA BC?
It's the Association of the Building Inspectors of BC. Yeah, that would be the first and most logical place to reach out. They have their resources to.
Okay, I
the
just,
first place, yeah.
it makes sense. I just, for the sake of the audience.
Sure.
What do the acronyms
Yeah.
mean?
All right, we'll move on to item number 9, unfinished business.
Well, I've got one more matter arising. It could be unfinished business, I
Okay.
guess. So in the last meeting, the representative on the invasive species, whatever that long
Yeah,
name was,
big long set of.
yeah, came up, and I said I would reach out to some of the environmental groups.
Mhm.
So I reached out to Native Plant Garden. There's no one there that wants to do it. It also happens to be part of the mandate of, managing invasive species of the bird-friendly group. So I reached out to them as well. They are prepared to send a representative. It will be Penny, in all likelihood. We need a resolution on that. I'll obviously recuse myself, but I'm not sure from reading it whether even a resolution was required. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, and if you do, and it does need a resolution, I'll just go.
Sorry, just give us the background again. That was.
So the invasive
missing a-
species group, they came to council, they asked us to send a representative. Joanne Ronsley had done it for years and years and years, and she's no longer up to it. So it came up in correspondence in the last meeting, and then the decision was that I was tasked with going and finding out who might be interested. So that's my report back. I went to the two obvious groups. Native Plant Garden guys were all too busy and didn't have anyone step forward, but the bird-friendly group said they would, but it's in all likelihood going to be Penny. So if we do need a resolution, I read it again and it doesn't say anything about a resolution. We would just like to know if we have a volunteer. So she could just apply as a volunteer, as a representative of the village. But if you do want to do a resolution, I'll just recuse myself quickly.
I'm fine with her applying.
No, yeah,
Any other
and if
comments?
she does need a resolution, maybe come back with that.
It doesn't read that she needs one,
Yeah.
but she will just say she's representing Lions Bay.
Fine with that.
Okay, all right.
Okay, move to unfinished business, follow-up items, item 265, follow-up with the ministry regarding vacancy tax, Councillor Reuter.
Yep, I'm working on something. I don't have something. I've had this for 2 weeks, so I'll have something in due course on that.
Okay, perfect, great. Item 266, budget, acting CFO. Okay, the acting CAO CFO to inquire with legal counsel whether budgets are required to be presented to the council or the finance committee first. I have his letter to read later, and I know he's intending to present that to the Finance Committee next week and council shortly after. As to a legal opinion, he's meeting with lawyers, I believe, on Thursday. So perhaps that's something, hopefully we can maybe get in advance to comfort some of the concerns that I know are at this table.
So you're suggesting that we'll have the legal opinion on whether it should go to the Finance Committee before it does, in fact?
I'm just saying this matter is still outstanding.
I mean, I just reiterate that I don't see any grounds for this going to the Finance Committee or the purported Finance Committee before it comes to council.
What is this point of information? What is a purported Finance Committee?
That's a Finance Committee, which, as we've discussed many times, has never received direction from council as per the community charter. It would behoove the Finance Committee to get that done. And then we wouldn't have to have this go around.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
So I mean, the Finance Committee, I would think it's in the village's best interest to have the Finance Committee review it and give some feedback on it. I don't see where the downfall is to that. But anyway, that's just my opinion. I think that's all the more intelligent and fiscally, knowledgeable people that we can get to look at that better. But go ahead.
Well, yeah, we have village volunteers who are active in finance and in industry, willing to contribute their time to review, and they have signed confidentiality agreements. And I just think it's in the village's best interest to review and assist. And the timelines on that, I think they should have the information as soon as we can get it to them and advise us accordingly. So
okay,
anyway, whatever.
I know that. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't get to speak on that.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I completely disagree with yourself and Michael. I agree with Marcus completely that council should direct committees. That's how it reads in the community charter. That's how it reads in our procedures bylaw. I think for a very good reason, items should come to council first. They should decide what they want done with it. That is what we got elected to do. And then it should be sent on to the committee, whether it's a finance committee or any other committee. That's how the procedure should be. I think we can end up getting ourselves in trouble if we don't do it that way. It's our job to see things and recommend what we want to see going to committees.
Okay. As some of you may not know, the Finance Committee is a standing committee, and that's the mayor's prerogative to appoint those members. And Councillor Abbott was invited to join that committee and he declined. So we have a Finance Committee, we have knowledge there, and I just think it's in the village best interest and the residents that we share information with them and get their feedback. Anything that they put forward is not binding. It's just more knowledge to review this information. But the CAO is meeting with a lawyer on Thursday, and I'll suggest that he ask that question and see whether they can give us some guidance on that.
That was the resolution between council to have him do that. So he should do that first.
Okay.
I cannot allow you to keep repeating things that I've counted, because you weave them into every statement. You said Councillor Abbott was invited to the committee and refused. The true context is council took a decision that Marcus Reuter was on that committee. You refused to allow him to sit the committee, and then you invited me. I said, until we change that resolution, I am not going to go take that seat. That was the one thing. The other thing I said to you is, I'm not happy with the terms of reference. If we go back to the previous terms of reference we had for Finance Committee and use those, I'd be comfortable. Same with all the other committees. And I do not accept the one statement in your terms of reference for standing committees that I, as a member of that committee, I do so at the pleasure of the mayor. I get a 4-year term at the pleasure of the electorate of Lions Bay, and I'm going to hold strong to that. So stop saying things weaving into your statements that just leave it like one open-ended statement. The true context is there's good reason why I did not join that committee. I don't have to state this again, but if you do keep saying I refuse, I will state it again.
Ken, you've had 2 go-arounds on this.
All right, I think we need to get back to business.
Just a minute. You've
Yes,
had
but
2.
you need to do it as well, though, Ken. You need
All right.
to stick
You've
to
had-
the business, man.
Gentlemen, time to get back to business.
You've had 2 go-arounds on it. You've had 2 go-arounds on it. All I'm asking
All right.
for over and over again is that as per proper
This is a simple,
procedure.
outstanding matter.
Yeah, well, you've had 2 moments
The
to
matter
speak to it. I
remains-
would like to have a moment to speak to it, okay? It's wonderful that we have volunteers who are stepping up to this. And I embrace that. However, the procedures must be followed, which is that this comes to council for direction. That's all I've been asking for over and over again. And that is something that hasn't been done and needs to be done. And as such, I will keep calling it a purported finance committee until it gets direction from council as per proper procedure. And I don't know why you wouldn't do that.
You're incorrect, okay?
It is absolutely correct.
Okay, we had.
Okay, let's move on.
Mr. Tobin, who has the legal expertise that
Read the
advised.
community charter, read the procedures bylaw.
Read it in detail, okay?
Yeah, well,
But we'll agree to disagree and we'll have.
bring it. What are you afraid of? Bring
Okay,
it to council.
not afraid of it, but it's
Well,
a standing
do it.
committee.
Yep.
Read the regulations on standing.
It's a system of checks and balances and you're trying to circumvent.
So we
that.
had a resolution to get it.
Okay, so we're gonna get back to business here. Item number 266 remains outstanding. 267, staff are working with an architect to complete drawings put out for the pre-building. That's
That's regarding the Clat building,
clap building, yes.
right? And, okay.
Okay,
Could I just, I'm sorry, there has been an item in the unfinished business, which has been on here for weeks and weeks and it's just dropped off because it was as of February 28th. I contacted the Ministry of Highways today regarding the budget for the repaving of this section of Lions Bay. And they are feeling very positive that they will proceed with that. However, they're waiting for a post-winter analysis, apparently in April, to determine the best solution for and the best timing, or if they are going to go ahead with the so-called quiet pavement. So anyway, it is in the works. They did follow up as promised in previous meetings, and I expect to hear back from them later in April. So,
okay.
okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item number 10, reports and staff report. I have just a brief from our CFO, CAO. In regards to the budget, the acting CEO will be presenting the budget to the Finance Committee next Tuesday, March the 14th. The acting CEO will also be recommending he present to the Committee of the Whole on March 16th or 17th. The intention is to revise the budget and present to the council at the March 21st meeting for the first reading and review. By election, the acting CAO, Mr. Miller, has been in regular contact with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs over the last couple of weeks. They have reported that Lions Bay's by-election is scheduled for May 6th, 2023. The ministerial order will be issued this week, according to their office. They have also said that they've chosen an independent chief election officer who will be announced with the ministerial order. The CEO's priority is to get this election completed. Clat building, Mr. Miller reports his staff have extended the Clat building grant. And I believe that's going to be on one of the resolutions. Also that Mr. Andrew Oliver has agreed to be project manager at no cost to the village. Building inspector, Mr. Miller's been reaching out. We've talked about that extensively, so I'll skip that. That's the emergency program committee meeting. Mr. Miller's received a commitment from former fire chief Andrew Oliver to assist in the involvement. And Mr. Miller looks forward to bringing his financial acumen to the committee and reviewing costs and deliverables of our consultants and committee wish list. And that is everything from the CAO.
Can I just say, go ahead, Noah.
I was just going to ask the question. So the CEO is bringing the budget to the committee before he gets the opinion of whether that's the correct procedure or not?
He stated that he's taking the budget on Tuesday of next week. And you've expressed your opinion that you don't think the finance committee should be seeing that in advance. So why don't we wait and have that discussion with the CAO after he's talked with the legal staff on, or the lawyer.
Okay, so you will do that first. Is all I'm asking.
Well, I'm saying he's got a meeting on Thursday and I will be voicing that. And if you want to send him an email to that effect, go for it.
Well, I would say strongly that he should not take it to the finance committee before it's come to council. And I just want to say again, you've thrown out there a bunch of information as to an election on May 6th. And I mean, where is?
I got that information today, so I'm sharing it with everyone.
This is just.
You know, I'm bringing it as we get it. We're trying to be.
It's just, if I could say, this is just not good enough. I mean, if there's information that's come from the ministry, there should be some written information, and that these verbal reports, this loosey-goosey, you know, stuff here, I mean, it's absurd. I mean, bring it in writing, have backup material so that we can come prepared with questions and move forward intelligently on this. It's
you're getting the information in real time, Councillor Ryder.
well, yeah, I just don't think it's real time. I think it's an ambush and it's incomplete, and I want to see it in writing from now on.
It's being an ambush. It's meant to provide people with information.
There's no backup material, nothing.
All right, Mayor's report. I'll read that. I've got copies if you want a copy. Provincial infrastructure grant, Susie Chan.
Do you have copies? Should we?
Yeah, sorry.
Can I ask when you had this mayor's report ready?
This afternoon.
Well, I'd ask you to do better next time and have it ready for the agenda. And this isn't even on table.
This is happening again. Some of these things were done, came about, the grant, for one example. You know,
Which
it's happening.
The provincial infrastructure.
Let me just read.
The provincial.
This is great, but to Marcus's point, you could have sent it to us yesterday and we could have.
I
Come
had it completed
prepared.
this afternoon. Let me read it, okay? And then you can make comments afterwards. All right, provincial grant, Susie Chant, MLA for North Van Seymour, reached out to me on Thursday to discuss a government grant. At this time, she said Lions Bay would receive $998,000 from the BC government, and the BC government would be announcing the allocations the next morning, after which Lions Bay could run with their announcements. The following day, I reached out to Susie asking for confirmation in writing to the grant. She sent that out in the afternoon on Friday. We were pleasantly surprised. Our estimations were that we were going to get close to about $500,000 in this grant. So $998,000, I think we were all very excited about that. A special note, in regards to the email that they followed up with on Friday afternoon, they said this was to confirm the Village of Lions Bay will be getting the $998,000 from this fund.
998,000?
Yeah.
Million.
998,000. Of special note, and she made this comment on the phone as well, Metro Vancouver Regional District will also be getting approximately 50 million, which may be used on assets to benefit the village as well, since it's in the Metro Van area. So she was quite encouraging about that. All the local governments are required to report the use of the funds in their annual audited financial statements. The Ministry of Municipal Affairs will provide further guidance to municipalities and regional districts of the use of their funds in the coming weeks. Metro meetings, recent Metro meetings on February 24th was dominated by discussion of how we can meet our climate goals for the Metro Vancouver over the next 20 years. Converting heavy duty transportation to electrification will be challenging. It was identified as a challenging endeavor. In terms of transit system, we'll be looking at replacing diesel fleets with renewable natural gas. In the next 10 years, there was an agreement that we would prefer electrification, but sadly, the availability of electrical fleets is not possible in the short term. TransLink committee members are focused on the regional issues versus parochial issues. However, when the opportunity arises to voice our rural concerns, the 4 smaller communities stick together on issues. A major issue the board is tackling is the funding of TransLink shortfall suffered during COVID and expected in the next 5 years. TransLink will be approaching provincial and federal governments in that regard. So that's the mayor's report.
Can I just ask a question? The grant that you're announcing here is the same one you announced in the village update?
That's correct.
Right. And the problem with this is that it sounds as though you have single-handedly wrestled this money out of reluctant pockets and gone bravely forth and brought back the bacon. But it should be noted that this is just something that we automatically get as per our population size. So I would ask you to temper the language that you use when you go out in your mayor's messages and report these things factually. This is something that we get automatically. It's all of our taxpayer money being redistributed back to us. And despite the name dropping there with Premier David Eby, et cetera, it's happening by default as it has in the past. The TransLink meeting is interesting to me. Is that the one you were at this last Thursday?
So just before we move on, I think we're all excited about the grant.
Sure.
And there's no effort to that I single-handedly obtained that. That information that you read came directly out of the news releases from the province.
Sure.
Phone calls that I had with Susie Chan. So
sure,
I think we should all be happy about that.
We should, but I'm asking you
So
to not present it in your mayor's messages as though you're the prodigal son returning with the killed, which it isn't. It's propaganda, and just report it factually.
Okay, so we'll move on. Anything from the council? Okay, committees, we'll move right to the Lions Bay Beach Committee. And Michael, Councillor Broughton and Councillor Abbott, I'll hand it over to you.
Unfortunately, 2 of the representatives just left. I did speak to them beforehand about this resolution. I'm just a little concerned with the way it's worded, and I think we need to be careful here. The committee or anyone else cannot approach the province. We never should. So what we are really asking here is that we direct the CAO to approach the province with the committee's request for that permit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there should be my impression was that it's very beneficial to have a sort of a political involvement as well. So I think it might be useful to have, for example, the CAO, a representative of the committee, and possibly a councillor or the mayor involved. But I'm really open to advisement on that from them. But I think what the resolution simply needs to be is that the village council supports the request, and yeah, it's basically going to direct the CAO to seek the permission, whatever way is most effective. So the wording is.
Yeah, the wording that concerns me just says the Lions Bay Beach Park Committee of representatives to put a request into province via Front County BC. So I don't think the Beach Park Committee is not an entity that has any contractual standing.
Right.
And they cannot put in a request. They should be putting a request to staff to submit for a permit to the province via Front County BC.
Mm-hmm. Okay. That council approve.
Why don't you just make it that council approve the Lions Bay Beach Park Committee's recommendation, and that that the CAO is directed to put a request to Front Counter to begin the process of the existing jetty repairs?
Says the same thing, just, yeah, as long as it's.
That council.
You guys want to do that now?
Committee representative.
Let's do it right now.
I'll put that forward as I read it.
Karen, have you got it?
Yeah, I'm just existing jetty. It's not a word that you type very often.
Okay.
I think I got it. That council supports the Lions Bay Beach Park recommendation Lions Bay Beach Park Committee recommendation, and that the CAO is directed to put in a request to front counter for the existing jetty repairs.
Sure.
That sounds, it'll do it.
Okay, all in
So
favor?
moved.
Second,
Yes,
all in favor?
yes.
Yes.
Okay, carried. Okay, events committee, we heard from them. Is there anything else? No, okay.
Well, we should probably get their, the material that they submitted.
Well, typically we get all of the grant material at the same time.
How did we, I had heard that 6,000 figure.
I've never seen anything to it, yeah.
I'd heard that number, but I
Okay,
haven't
last,
seen it.
I think it might be based on what happened last year, to be honest, but I had heard that number before.
Okay. Well,
I don't
we
really want to go.
need that paperwork. Okay. All right. Move to item number D3, emergency program, and Neville, pass it over to you.
Okay, so we had a meeting last week, Thursday. Fortunately, all the committee members couldn't attend, but we did because we needed to get a couple of things going, and we're having another meeting this Thursday. I think the posting has gone out and the agenda's gone out. I hope everyone can attend. But one of the urgent things we needed to deal with, and is time bound, is the notification system. So we currently have a system called LB Alert, or Lions Bay Alert. And virtually every, and that system has to be renewed next week. The annual renewal is due next week. Most, or virtually every other municipality around us, Scorn being one exception, as well as Metro and other organizations, are using a system called Alertable. So Alertable is a phone software system, and you can register and receive those alerts anywhere, not just where you live. Could be where you work, could happen to be where you're traveling. I believe you can even set up your phone to calculate the coordinates you're in and give you alerts in that area, just because you happen to be traveling through. So it's a far more effective tool. It would cost us $3,600 a year, whereas Lions Bay Alert currently only costs us $1,200. The other concern that was raised about Lions Bay Alert is it's the sort of residents need to enter all the information and go through a two-step process to get approved. I don't know how many of us went through this when it came out. It is very cumbersome. And for that reason, we only ended up with 380 or something people being registered. A lot more people think they're registered, but they didn't do the second phase of the approval process. It also asked you to put in a lot of personal information, which probably isn't the right thing to do. And all that information sits in a server in the US. So some people have a security concern about that as well.
And it's actually procedurally that we can't have that information stored on foreign servers, right? I think.
Someone said that, I don't know that for sure. It came up in the committee meeting.
Yeah.
Someone, I think it was Phil, said, you shouldn't, in Canada, you're not allowed to store personal information on foreign servers. We can take it, he's right. Unless we know any better.
Yeah.
But
so you're recommending that we? So
I'm recommending we transition to Lions Bay, transition to Alertable as a $3,600 annual fee. There's also a one-time $300 fee where they will transition all the existing people that are on Lions Bay Alert. Whether that actually does happen and will happen or not, I'm not sure. But I think we should add the $300 in there, because if it does work, it's certainly money well spent. So this would be a budget item. But the reason the urgency, as I said, is if we don't the council doesn't make a decision to approve this in the future budget, we're going to have no system come the 14th, which is in the next week, sometime next week. So before the next council meeting anyway. So we can discuss this in more detail at the EPC meeting on Thursday. But what I'd like to do is put a resolution forward that says, pending the outcome, or unless something changes in Thursday's EPC meeting, the council recommends we change from the Lions Bay Alert to the Alertable system in the next budget. That's what I'd like to put forward.
Okay.
And if you've got more questions on Thursday, you can bring them up and Phil can give you more.
Okay,
details.
do we have a second on that?
I'll second it.
Okay, any further discussion?
So the effective difference, so would be the difference between 1,200 and 3,600. So
Well, 3,900 if we take the
3,900. Okay, yeah, okay, great.
And this alertable system does not hold our information down in the States, is that?
No, it doesn't.
That's local, yeah.
Low.
It's
In
local.
Canada, yeah.
Canada.
And it's a phone app system, so you actually do it yourself, and it's kind of instantaneous. The LB Alert asks for all kinds of personal information, and I'm told the alertable won't even ask you for. They don't need it.
Right.
All they're going to do is send you a notification based on where you are.
Right, perfect.
Right.
Okay, question?
I'm fine with that. Question? Yeah. All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Okay.
A couple other things that came up in the meeting we can discuss further, which will be budget items, and that's why I put them in here because Ron asked me for the budget items. The emergency program coordinator, that's a contract position. And was last year's budget was 30,000 for underspent on last year. But he's kind of used that up since because we haven't, he was working on a calendar year, but depending how that comes out in the budget. Just everyone's information, it works out to about a day and a half per week. And he gives us a heavy discount on his going rate because he's a resident. So he only charges $50 an hour. And he does that for the work that he does as the emergency program coordinator, writing procedures and the rest of it. In the event of an emergency, he will be volunteering. He won't be charging for his time. But that will be further discussed in the budget. And then there's a new item that we need to deal with. We need an emergency contingency fund. And we suggest we use $50,000. And now that we know the budget's not coming to tonight, we need to discuss this further on Thursday in the committee. And this is really just, it's a cash flow kind of issue. If there's an emergency, it takes some time for the province to actually get around to issuing. They issue these like little chits that you can then go claim, and it all takes time. So what most of the new municipalities have done is they create a fund. We can immediately give resident support if they need it, and then we can claim it back later. So it's not an amount of money we would spend. It would just be a cash flow issue.
It's a designation.
Yeah,
almost a fund, right?
So that would still, stay in our bank account.
We still stay in our bank
Is
account.
50,000 enough?
Probably not.
We can discuss it on Thursday, but seemingly yes. You could blow through it pretty fast.
Yeah.
But most people wouldn't be claiming anything from it because, if you got your credit card in your pocket and you get out of here, you're on your own, right? Which is where most people would be.
Okay. So we'll discuss that again.
If you get more information on Thursday.
Okay.
And then the last one is there's $10,000 unspent on the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund. This one, once again, has a short timeline. We must actually spend it and claim it back by the 12th of April. It's a 100% grant that we got last year. And again, we can discuss that on Thursday. The only reason I jumped the gun is because I thought the budget was coming tonight.
Okay.
So that's that. And otherwise on Thursday, we'll get a further update.
Okay, thanks for that update. Sounds like lots of good information.
And by the way, we do need to get the posting out. We don't have a posting for the EPC for Thursday. Okay. No, it's not out yet. So Karen, would you get that out?
Can we just, do we have everyone confirmed for Thursday?
Everyone that was in the meeting last Thursday said they'd be available.
So
Missing were yourself, the CAO.
It works for me.
Yeah, I think it's just yourself and the CAO that's missing.
Okay,
Everyone
so we
else
just
is
need to
there.
check with the CAO, make sure he's there, but otherwise I think that's good.
And Karen, would you then see to getting a posting out for Thursday?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So 6 o'clock as we did last time, or 6:30?
Yeah. I think the workshop manager's on that committee as well.
If you want to go earlier, I'm good earlier as well.
Well, that someone asked that we push it to 6:30 because they were working in the city and needed to go
Right.
home.
Okay. Yeah.
So we leave it at 6:30.
Yeah,
Right.
Public Works Manager is a member.
The works manager's also on that committee, yeah. And he wasn't available last week, but he will be on Thursday, I hope.
Okay, good. So we'll just confirm the CAO's there, hopefully early tomorrow morning and send it up.
Yeah, that would be good.
Okay. Item number 4, trees, views, landscapes. Okay, the applications, we can go through these one at a time.
Could we put them together? I think that the recommendations of the tree committee, can we move all 3 be received or be?
I'm fine with that.
No.
Would you guys know?
No, I've gone and had a look at them, as I think there's a few points to discuss on.
Okay, let's
Some
look
of
at
them
it
more than others.
individually.
Okay.
We'll start with the first item. It's tree application 124, 12 Brunswick.
So I'll move acceptance of tree
Yeah.
application 124.
Second?
Yeah.
Okay, discussion.
Just a suggestion, should we flip them around and do 2 and 3?
To the easy ones.
Do the easy ones first?
I
Yeah,
don't know
we-
which ones are easy. I
Yeah.
looked at them and I visited the sites and.
Yeah, I have as well. I've got some points to talk about on certainly on Brunswick. That one
Okay,
might
let's
be
go
a
with
little
that
contentious.
one. Let's-
It might be a little
Okay.
contentious. The easy ones are, I guess they're the other 2 because we're largely going to improve those, although I've got one suggestion on 70. Why don't we do, we'll
I'm
just
gonna
go
put
from the,
Councillor Abbott first. Councillor Roy, do you want to speak this second?
yeah,
Sorry, which one are we discussing?
let's do it bottom up. All right.
Okay.
Why don't we do that? Okay, so 128.
261 Stewart.
Yeah. Okay, so that one I've got nothing further to add other than I did go visit the site with the owner, that's why we still on the call, or the applicant, as well as the council Reuter. There's just, the application is a little hard to understand what's been asked for because, just because of the situation. But I think we've got a clear understanding with Carmen that we're only dealing with the trees that are on our side of the boundary. He's still got to deal with the school district on the other stuff. There's a road, Loggers Lane Road there, and there's a berm on the other side, and it's commonly accepted about 1 meter from the side of the road, or that berm is where the village property line stops. So he's only going to deal with those trees. And the general acceptance is he's going to go top them to where they were topped before. Nothing more, nothing less. And I think on that basis, I'm okay with it going ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
Councillor Ryder?
Yeah, I think the discussion was that he had a row of trees that were on the north side of Loggers Lane, and he wanted to regain that view back, and that the other pruning would be on the other side would be in line with that. And we had a discussion about the deciduous trees, and he had agreed that that they're not going to come up completely, but will be topped to that same level to get him his view back. And I'm good with that.
Okay, Councillor Barlow?
Are you saying that the deciduous trees are going to be topped as well?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, because they will just take off again. They just,
Yeah.
okay, is that what he's requested?
That was the discussion we had, and he was.
Discussion we had, it was amended.
Is Carmen still with us? We could let him chime in.
What the
Just
request
before
was.
Carmen goes, so we walked that property with one of the tree committee members, and who's a tree specialist. He commented on the deciduous. He said you probably don't want to top those because they're just going to, they flourish that much more. He said you're better to take them right down. That was his comment.
Okay, so my request to Carmen was, for various environmental reasons as well as safety for fire, is we should not be creating these monocultures where we only have firs and pine trees in our forests, because it's the deciduous trees with the extra moisture that actually are less likely to catch alight and slow down fires. So that's one reason. The other reason, just for environmental reasons, I think you've got to create, you should keep biodiversity. Made those points to Carmen, and he said, yeah, okay, I accept that, we'll top them. So that is a change to what's in the permit. That's my request or my recommendation. But open to others' opinion.
Okay, if Carmen's wants to top them, that's fine with me.
Just one other question I had, which was, some of them are 1-year permits and one is a 5-year. I don't know why that was.
I don't know.
Yeah, should we just leave that as it is?
Now, which one was the 5-year permit?
This one is the 5-year. The others were permits that were good for a year.
Okay, I didn't pick up on that. The other council, in the previous council, the tree committee had often come with suggestions of long long permit times. I thought we agreed to a 3-year max on the previous council.
I think Carmen said he's gonna hop on this once, because the nesting seasons are gonna be on us, so he's likely gonna get on it. So should we just make it a 1 year, as like the others are? To be consistent?
Yeah, he's requesting a 10-year permit.
10-year?
Yep.
I think it was granted a 5-year.
Well, I think there has been 10-year, seems to be.
There hasn't been for many years because the last council pushed back on that.
Okay.
The concern was,
remember.
and I thought we settled on 3, but maybe we settled on 5. Possible we settled on 5. Which means what this means is you can go back and redo the work for the next 5 years.
Right. Which seems like if they're talking about topping and so on, I think that makes a lot of sense.
I guess the problem is consistency. Why are some 1 year and
I don't know.
It might be because he's got a lot of deciduous there and they're gonna grow like weeds. Maybe that's just my experience. They grow quickly. That's why if you top them, they're gonna be twice as many branches coming at you 4 feet a year.
Well, I mean, the cedars grow pretty rapidly too, so.
So if the tree committee recommended 5, and maybe that was the previous maximum, I can't remember, but maybe it was, should we just go with the 5 in this case?
I'm good with 5.
We'll go as recommended on the other ones.
They appear to be kind of one-time requests versus this one is an ongoing request.
Well,
let's go with 5.
The other ones are exactly the same thing. They're trimming or work on previous trees.
Oh, that's right. There's some, yeah. No, I'm thinking of the one where it's at the front and the back. Yeah. Okay.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we issue them all the one-time permit? And then at some other point, we need to get together as a group and decide with the tree committee what the duration should be on reoccurring permits and make them all consistent.
And make them all 1 year.
Well, for now, we just issue them all as a 1-year permit, so they can do it this year.
Yep.
And then as a group at another point in time, we go away and discuss with the tree committee how long the permit should remain open for. So I know the previous council did discuss it. Maybe Karen, we can dig out the previous resolution.
All right, that sounds like reasonable, and then we come to a resolution with the tree committee.
Just to clarify, I'm changing it to 1 year.
Changing them all to 1 year.
I would imagine that this one, after looking at all the sites, this one has a lot more deciduous. And that's why he's probably thinking longer term. He's gonna be out there every year.
Could be. But this way he can do his first year anyway.
Yeah.
Find out what the extension is afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. With that amendment, all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, opposed, motion carried. Okay.
So
item 127.
So on 70 Sunset. So the request was that the tree on the front of the property, on the street side, be cut down to between 8 and 10 feet above grade to keep further privacy until the hedge had grown up. The tree committee recommendation was basically to ignore that request and tell them to take it out completely. I spoke to the resident next door and they were quite adamant. That's what we agreed. We wanted to keep that 8 to 10 thing in there. So I would like us to approve it as requested, not as the tree committee recommended. Give them what they asked for, not tell them to take it out completely.
That seems.
It seems like a reasonable proposition. I'm just unclear. I mean, the tree committee, we've got, a lot of experience there and they're making recommendations and I just am a bit uncomfortable not hearing the recommendations. So
have you visited the site, Michael?
Yes, I've been.
Yeah. I mean, I think they've got a hedge. They planted a yew hedge that they want to have come up and they want to retain some privacy until that row of hedges is in place. And so I think that was the ask. And the neighbor supported it. So it
Okay. Yeah. I think it would be a really good idea if down the road we have we're already talking about getting together with the tree committee. I think that would be a really good idea.
Yeah.
To sit down and talk about different aspects, because this is now you know, tree committee made recommendations in December and they were altered. And then these are being altered. So the recommendations are being altered. And I think that we've got volunteers spending time going and looking and taking their expertise. And I think we have to make sure that they really feel valued in that. So. Okay.
All right, I would echo those sentiments. I think tree committee makes recommendations. We don't want to be amending every one of the recommendations, or they're going to get discouraged and say, well, why do you need us? Or residents are going to start asking for twice as much because they're expecting us to carve it back. So maybe it would be a good idea to get together with the tree committee and have a discussion.
Sure. In this case, we suggest just give them what they asked for. Don't tell them they have to cut out more. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, well, the tree,
which has happened.
I assume the tree committee had a reason to do that.
Yeah.
So
we can have that discussion with the tree committee. Why don't we do that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
open discussion about why they do what they do.
I'm suggesting at this point.
Because
I just,
I'm not gonna,
yeah, I think we need to.
I'm not going to give my opinion now.
Okay, so what's the resolution is to
approve the permit as it was asked for, not as recommended by the tree committee.
Excuse me. Okay, second.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yeah.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Item application number 124 at 12 Brunswick.
Okay, so this one.
We have a motion.
Yep. I'll put forward.
Motion to accept, yeah.
Okay, second.
Sure.
Okay, discussion.
So this one's a little more awkward. I think Councillor Reuter probably has the solution and maybe I have the awkwardness. So let me start with the awkwardness.
I'm feeling awkward too.
As people know, I know this bylaw pretty well and I read it as written, and I think you need to, if you get a permit application, you need to address it as written. It has language around significant trees. It says if you want to do work on a significant tree, you need to state so in your application. And it also says that council will make the assessment on a significant tree whether you should do the work or not. That's what it says. And the council will look at it as a case-by-case basis. That's what the permit says. This application doesn't mention significant trees. I measured at least 3, and maybe there was more. Well, I did measure the 3 biggest ones, so let's just say that 3 of the trees are significant trees. So the permit application was wrong in the first place. It says you can't cut significant trees unless coming to council. The definition of cut includes any work done on the trunk, as well as removing a branch that's bigger than 70 millimeters or 3 3/4 inches. We have both those circumstances in this batch of trees. So the awkwardness for me is, the tree committee should know the bylaw and should deal with it. And in this meeting we're going to have with them, I think we should have language about how we deal with significant trees. But they should have at least told us, by the way, 3 are significant trees, but here's what we think. That it doesn't even get mentioned. So that's the awkwardness. The other awkwardness, and the bigger one for the residents, is they put this permit in October last year. And now we're weeks away from the songbird nesting season and they haven't got their permit. So we don't have time, or they're going to lose the season. So that's the other thing I find problematic. Why it took so long to get to the tree committee, I don't know, but it's something we need to investigate further and do better at. Well, and then as I said, I visited it. Marcus has been back there today. He has got some other thoughts and suggestions, and I think there might be a workaround that you suggested earlier today. If you want to explore that, Marcus, maybe I'll just stop talking and not steal all the thunder.
Oh, no, I mean, I'm just trying to find out. I mean, I also sympathize with, this has been sitting here since October and now time is running out. So it's just trying to find a way to make this work. I mean, I'm mindful of the fact that this is a public park and a beach that's enjoyed by the community down there. That it's also very close to the water. And, you know, as we get king tides occasionally, that this does stabilize the bank there and probably protect the infrastructure, the village infrastructure, the road that is right adjacent to it. So, I mean, I think we need to be careful with it. There are a number of significant trees. There's no doubt about that. So I was trying to think of a way of splitting the baby so that something could move forward here. I mean, I think if we didn't have the time push, we'd want to investigate this. I mean, ideally, what I'd like to see is an arborist, because there are a huge number of trees, and they form part of this park, and they serve an important function for the infrastructure as well aesthetically. But I mean, I would suggest that so that these people can get something done, that we give them the go-ahead to prune whatever branches are there so they can do something now. Any branches that are hanging, you know, 15 feet or lower from the ground, and that they can take those out now. Or if they want to do more than that, I think we should have an arborist look at it. And I would suggest, I think you guys on the Beach Park Committee have had an arborist who's come down the, what's their name?
No, you're talking about Heartwood. They haven't,
Yeah,
they haven't, no, they put forward, she put forward a proposal to
Right.
do the work. We haven't given anyone.
Okay.
But if that's you, yeah, I mean, she does know the village, she does know our tree permit.
Yeah. So I'd suggest that we have Heartwood come and assess the trees, and then provide a recommendation as to the whole group of trees.
If it's any more than limiting up to.
Yes, I mean, it's an option, and that would be that we would request that. We would be requesting that, but that the cost, if the applicant wants to go forward with that route, would be borne by the applicant. And I wouldn't think it would be terribly expensive. So just to give them some options here.
Yeah, I mean, one of those surveys are not expensive.
Okay, Councillor Brown.
Could I just add one further thing, Michael? I mean,
Sure, go ahead.
One thing that also came on. The other thing that happened here is the company that they were, it looks like they're going to contract the work to, in their assessment, they pointed out that one tree was dead, dying, but that wasn't part of this quote or permit application. Our works yard went by and said, oh yeah, you have to take out that one tree. And by the way, I think there's another one you should take out as well. Both of those were not part of the permit application. I couldn't spot the second one. I could spot one that looks like it's dead. Couldn't spot the other one's about to die. So I'm not sure what it was, but I'm not an expert. So I think if we are going to evaluate this permit, let's do it on the ask once again, not the additional things that the workshop tried to add into it. Because
I saw the one dead tree, but I didn't see a second.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, Councillor Brown.
Well, if the workshop has identified a dead tree, I think we need to address it, and whether it's part of the application or not. I mean, this is an area people walk, there's children across the street from here and so on. If there's a dead tree, the dead tree should be addressed. You're suggesting that the branches up to 15 feet they be given permission to do that. Is that right?
I mean, like the branches that have grown down to within 15 feet.
They want to raise the canopy, right? And so we're trying to give an option for moving something forward now, if they so choose. I mean, I think the better option would be to have an arborist assess it all, and then they could look at this dead tree. I mean, I saw it as well. It is partially dead. It's not completely dead. I mean, I think it would be wise to have that assessed as well. So, I mean, that's an option.
The other problem because the other part of the application is to be given carte blanche to spiral thin as they see fit.
Yeah.
Now, there's no limitation on that. There's no description of what that would look like. So that's where I think, you know, an idea of an independent arborist probably helps, because we don't want to be killing any more of these trees. The one that's dead is probably because it got limbed up too much, but certainly we don't want to do that to any of the big ones.
Okay, how about if I comment and then we call the question? It sounds like we're in agreement that 15 feet, or not in agreement, but that's what you'd like. I guess the overall recommendation from, again, the tree committee, I really think we need to get together with them, because we're going to discourage these volunteers, and they may throw their hands up. And so they're making recommendations, and we're adjusting. But in this instance, I just see 15 feet is that something that you're pretty firm on, Councillor Reuter, 15 feet?
Well, I'm just trying to present it as an option, if the applicant wants to move forward now, keeping in mind that they, asked for this some time ago. Perhaps the delay was that, I see that they were tasked with getting responses from neighbors.
I'm sure they want to move forward.
Yeah.
With it. So
15
15 feet, is that?
Or the arborist option, which I think it'd be, but to present an option at
Or the
least.
arborist, okay.
Yeah, and that would be, just to be clear, an arborist that we would employ at the applicant's expense. So the arborist would report to council. And I think that would be, Hartwood would do a great job on this.
So one or the other, and then
So
the
Hartwood is available, and but this dead tree, I think, needs to be addressed right away as well, and that would be obviously part of it.
that's a dead tree that's leaning right towards the house. That's the one that I saw, was dead, leaning towards the house. So if our works yard has identified that, then that's.
I
didn't see the one leaning towards the house.
I didn't see one leaning. The one on the beach side of the road?
It was on the roadside. It was the only one that I saw, and it was leaning quite heavily towards the houses.
But on the south side of the road, or I would presume, I didn't see.
I was only
On
looking
the
at trees on the one side,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's only trees on one side.
Yeah.
I didn't see the lean, but yeah, the arborist would then cover that and give us an opinion, I guess. I'm just trying to present an option in terms of.
Well, I would like to support them getting something, as you say. That's a great idea. I think that this tree is a potential hazard to the village, risk to the village. So I believe the village must have an arborist have a look at that, or simply take it out. So obviously they could work in conjunction with the arborist who's if these people want to go ahead with an arborist and get recommendations to a higher level, and also the spiraling, which may make those trees safer with the kind of winds that we've been having and so on.
The only problem with the arborist is that the report and it coming back to council may not happen in time to get any cutting done.
Right.
So-
Oh, yeah.
So it's
And I'm
15 feet
suggesting
or the
that they be
arborist,
given,
and they
yeah.
can decide.
Well, I think, I think both. Yeah, 15 feet now, and they can go and then the
We could still
arborist.
possibly get the arborist done
Yeah,
Good.
sure.
in time.
Yeah.
We've got 2 weeks.
Well, they should then let us know which option they want to go with, and then we would have to reach out to the arborist, because I think the arborist.
Or we can give them the name.
Yeah.
I think after what we heard about the work yard, concern about that tree, we're gonna have to look out. We're gonna have to attend to that potential.
Well, we could allow them to remove the dead tree if we know which now, but the one that may be dead soon, I couldn't work out which one that one was. But if there's an arborist involved, that's easy.
Okay,
Yeah, so they've got to go ahead. So
let's make the amendment to
they've
that.
got to go ahead for the 15 feet. And then the other is.
Subject to
so
the arborist.
The village will have their arborist look at it for sure. And if they want to have the arborist inform this application, they have that option too, right?
Yeah.
Does that seem reasonable? So they can get on with that. Yeah.
Okay, I'm good with that amendment.
Okay.
And who's covering the cost of the arborist?
The village would have to cover the cost of the arborist for the dead tree. And the resident would cover the cost of the arborist for the work.
It's going to make it a little complicated, because the arborist will come and assess. There's a whole number of trees. I'd say give it to the applicant, ask them which option they'd like to go with, and and let them make the
Well,
choice.
I guess we're splitting a few $100 here because that's, the harvest, she doesn't charge that much.
Yeah.
We could offer to split the bill on the arborist then, if it deals with the dead trees.
Sure, that's fine. Yeah,
Right.
sure. Okay,
Okay,
I'm good with that.
Yeah, they
all right.
break it out, that's sure.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay, opposed, carried. Okay. All right, to the trees, resolutions. Okay, move to 11A. Resolution of council. Council appoints Ron Miller, acting chief financial officer, chief administration officer, be appointed as screening officer as per bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 385, 2006 as amended. Do you have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second?
I'll see.
Okay, discussion.
Question?
All in favor?
Aye.
Just hang on a second. This is to appoint Ron Miller, the screening officer?
Yes.
Yeah, and the background on this is that we need a screening officer for the bylaw tickets that come in.
Yep.
Am I understanding that correctly?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
According to bylaw.
So in the bylaw, the 385, it allows us to appoint the chief administrative officer, the corporate officer, the municipal coordinator, the chief financial officer, or the bylaw enforcement officer. And council may appoint screening officers from these classes of persons by name of office or otherwise. So, I mean, given my discussion with Ron today, he feels, his plate is pretty full. So, and you all know my issue with the legitimacy of his appointment or hiring in relationship to the hiring freeze. So if we could simply reword this as that council appoints the office of the corporate officer as per our bylaw 385 to be appointed as the screening officer as per bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 385, 2006 as amended. That would be, would essentially get the same thing done.
It's the same thing done.
Who are we referring to as corporate officer then? Ron?
Well, it's whoever is acting as corporate officer. But that
In
is,
other words, this would effectively be giving Ron that ability, and if he's replaced as we move down the road, the new person steps into his shoes.
Correct.
well, whoever is filling the office of corporate officer.
Yeah. If it was someone else was appointed other than.
Yeah, if somebody else was appointed and then the screenings can go ahead. So I would suggest, as per the bylaw 385, that it be an appointment as per the class of office of corporate officer. And whoever's filling that role.
I can live with that, but I don't agree with your comment about
Sure.
his position. So
But I'm just stating my perspective to make, just to help this.
that has nothing to do with this.
Right.
We're putting it to the corporate officer of which he is, and if he's replaced or someone else comes in, great. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm good with that. Do we
Yeah.
have a second? Or do you have some comments?
I think I Michael was already put it forward and I seconded it. So it's on the.
So it's on the table, yeah.
Oh, so the second the amendment, sorry.
So the amendment-
I will second Marcus's amendment, sorry, I wasn't.
The amendment is, yeah, to make it the
Corporate officer.
corporate officer. Okay.
Instead of Miller.
To make it the office of the corporate officer.
Right.
Because it allows us to do that as per the bylaw.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would accept that on the basis that it's helpful going forward, but not certainly not on the basis of questioning any legitimacy of the current chief administrative officer.
So why don't we read?
I agree with that.
Why don't we read it unqualified?
So we'll just read it this way, and then we've all had our say here. So that council appoint the office of corporate officer to be appointed as screening officer as per bylaw notice enforcement bylaw number 385, 2006 as amended.
Perfect.
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried.
Okay, good.
Okay. Item
Totally
number B.
respect your right to be wrong.
And back to you.
Yeah.
Okay, item number B, the council approve a letter to be written to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs asking for a one-year extension to the end of December 31st, 2024 for the Clap Building retrofit / upgrade project. Do we have a motion for that?
I'll put it forward.
Okay, second.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, next item is that the council endorse the application. We've discussed this earlier.
We've done that, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
Bylaws. Okay, item number A. Maybe you can explain to us why we're rescinding that.
That would be.
Okay, it's a staff question, but
Yeah.
they're not in the room. As best I can.
Karen?
Well, sure, I could as you get.
No.
No, we've got staff in the room. Let's have one of them talk. You know the answer.
You want to comment on it or?
I was just meaning that the staff is in the room, but you go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm just going to, from the top of my head, try to paraphrase the same email you see. Seemingly it wasn't presented correctly as it was done before. They hadn't revised the numbers and the amendment number as it's meant to be done. So what we read last week and have been reading for several months is not actually the bylaw we should be reading. So we have to rescind that because it wasn't done properly. And now we have to read it for a first, second, and third time, which doesn't make it any worse position than we were in earlier from a timing point of view, because we couldn't read and adopt in one night anyway, which was, as pointed out earlier. So that's why we have to rescind it.
Who pointed that out to us?
I'll just clarify that it was because the track changes version wasn't submitted. Because did you change it since then?
No, I think it was.
No, that's not the reason for it.
I think it was a little more than that.
It's more than that.
It was that there has to be an amending bylaw.
An amending bylaw.
Right, it was more complex. It's all very complicated, but at the end of the day.
Yeah, but the track changes is in this package.
It's in the
correct?
package as well, yeah.
But apparently that wouldn't have been satisfactory. And so we need to do an amending bylaw, rescind the first two readings and then do the three readings
The
tonight.
amendment bylaw has specific changes that are.
Yes, and you have to list all the changes.
listed.
I just asked who
And
pointed
they
this
are
out to
listed.
us.
They're all listed,
They're
yes.
right.
Karen would know, I don't know.
Sorry. what
Who
was that?
pointed this out? It was-
Pointed this.
You can-
Out.
Shauna's worked on bylaws,
Okay,
but this package does include, I did all of the amendments.
That was your word.
No, it's all beautifully laid out, yeah.
That's a lot of work.
Mhm.
Mhm.
okay, so motion to rescind that.
I'll put it forward.
Second,
Second,
all in favor?
Yes.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. Number B, council for first, second, third reading of garbage and recycling collection bylaw, number 455, amendment bylaw number 625. We have a motion to that.
I'll put it forward.
Second.
Yep.
Okay, discussion.
okay, you want to speak to it or do you want?
I think I've spoken all I needed to last time. And,
Okay.
I'll put down Councillor Broughton speaking
Okay.
first, Councillor
For sure.
Abbott next.
sure.
Okay. I'm struggling and working very hard to ensure that I can support this bylaw. I was considering asking for a deferral because there were some questions that I asked, but I think that I'd like to just point out a couple of concerns that I have that I believe will make it enforceable. I don't believe it's enforceable as it currently exists. And I think that one of the driving forces for it was that the bylaw officers were seeking the ability to enforce the bylaw. I did hear resident earlier expressing concerns about the veracity of the aggressiveness of the bylaw and so on, but and I have heard that from other residents over the week. But I'm hoping that we can have a balance of education, which is Lions Bay has done an outstanding job of, and thoughtful enforcement. I think that we need to look at our bylaw enforcement throughout the village throughout all the different bylaws, including parking and other areas. So when I'm looking at this, there's a couple of things that are of concern to me. One is that we seem to have internally contradictory statements within the document.
Can you take us to a page number, Michael?
I'll take you to, well, no, I can't actually. It's the third page of the recycling bylaw, which I have on paper here because.
Does it not have a page number printed? Or?
Let's see if I can find it.
Maybe you can take us, because we've got.
I'm getting started on it anyway. Okay. I guess, I want to reiterate that I'm completely supportive of Bear Smart and have been a lifelong proponent of education and helping citizens to understand how they can support Lions Bay and being the Bear Smart community that we are, and which is an incredible source of pride. And, but we want to manage the safety of citizens, safety of the bears. And we are living in a rural area and we can peacefully coexist. I totally believe that. As I look at the bylaw, though, I'm looking at under definitions, we've got a wildlife resistant container. And it's defined, it means a secure, fully enclosed container with a lid and latching device of sufficient design and strength to prohibit access by wildlife. And I don't believe that there is a container that can prohibit. I think that the word previously was deter. And I think that's an acceptable definition as when we then go to enforce it later, because otherwise I think we're completely vulnerable to someone saying, well, what is a bear-proof container, which is another point I'll raise in a second. The wildlife resistant enclosure is the second area. And again, I would see the word prohibit being left as deter, and I think that would make the bylaw much more enforceable. Could I just explain the points, and then I think you'll see the direction I'm going here. The two terms wildlife proof container and wildlife proof enclosure at the bottom of the page.
Which page?
On our package, page 78 is the one place where you can see the whole bylaw. That's where I'm looking.
Okay, so we've added those two terms, wildlife proof and wildlife proof container and wildlife proof enclosure. And I'm a bit confused as to, we've defined them, but they're not referred to anywhere else in the bylaw. So I just don't know why they're there. We've added them, but I'm not clear what the reason is. I also would be interested to know, how this would compare to the bylaws in North Vancouver, West Vancouver, Squamish, and so on. So I don't know that there is a bear-proof container or bear-proof enclosure. Anyone who is, we can definitely deter and really do everything we possibly can, but it seems to me that a bear is going to go where a bear wants to go. And so it's if we're putting things into place that are unenforceable, is a problem. As we go through the document, that's just in the definitions. If we continue along, we've added obligation of residence. It says the receptacles required under this bylaw shall at all times be securely housed to ensure that the contents do not attract. And then the words and are not accessible to wildlife. I'm not sure.
So can you just give us a section number there?
Section 6, sorry.
So that would be our page 79, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, 79, okay. put that up at the top. So are not accessible to wildlife. I don't think that's a huge change, but I'm not sure, how we can ensure that they're not accessible. So, and then sliding along, going several pages more, 78, 79, 80, 81, page 81, I guess. We're talking about outdoor fridges or freezers must be inaccessible to wildlife. And then the words "and stored in a wildlife resistant enclosure" added to that. And I'm just not sure, what we're asking residents to do with that. And so I would want to understand more what we're expecting. We're already asking that outdoor fridges or freezers must be inaccessible to wildlife, period. So whether an enclosure is required, I'm not clear. So that's the concern that I have in terms of having the terms proof, their proof, wildlife proof, just doesn't. I don't believe it's attainable. So I would see leaving them in the form that they previously were, as I've mentioned. So it's just those items. The other items I think are helpful in terms of there was a concern about electric fences and whether they're in fact could also cause a safety hazard to residents. So but I would want to know more about that. So there's just a number of things that I think if those simple changes were made, that would.
Could I just ask
where
the fridges are? Which point was that?
Okay, we're talking page 78.
Which clause number?
Yeah, the clause.
Bottom and bottom. Okay, clause 6.
Yeah, got that.
Okay, are not accessible to wildlife. I'm not. Okay, and section 29.
29.
And stored in wildlife resistant enclosures, outdoor fridges or freezers. Now, I think there's varying degrees of comfort in the community with beefing up some of these regulations, but I really want to do everything possible to try to ensure that we can peacefully coexist with the bears.
Okay, so can we just try into some of those? I think some of them I can answer. Okay, so on the wildlife resistant enclosures or containers versus proof, I think somehow in the too many track changes and putting things back in and back out, there was some confusion there. So a container, as in the garbage can, is wildlife resistant.
Right.
Right. So that should lead wildlife resistant. The enclosures are wildlife proof. So you can't get a wildlife proof garbage can, as you correctly pointed out, but an enclosure can be wildlife proof. And for example, you can buy them from various companies and they've been tested against bears and they're wildlife proof. So I think the change there to clean that up would need to be strike wildlife resistant enclosure and strike wildlife proof container. We then have to go back and review the entire document, I guess, to make sure that all the definitions are correct with that. But that was the intent there, differentiating between enclosures, which can be wildlife proof, whereas containers, which are not.
And just to jump in here, if it's a matter of understanding what wildlife proof enclosure means, I mean, that is defined in there, right? It seems to have a fairly reasonable definition that it has enclosed sides or roof doors and a latching mechanism of sufficient strength to prevent access by wildlife. So it is defined in there.
I'm not convinced that's possible, so I'm
Yeah,
not
I'm
sure
not
that.
convinced that's possible either.
Well, I mean, this would be under any reasonable interpretation. I mean, there will always be, or there could potentially hypothetically be situations where something could be gotten into, but it's under interpretation. Is this particular structure reasonably of sufficient strength to be wildlife proof? And that's what the bylaw officers would then have to make a call on.
So I think we'd have to look at where we use the word wildlife proof.
And I guess my position would be there wouldn't be anywhere that you could use the term wildlife proof.
Yeah, you can go buy them. You can buy wildlife proof large containers, large boxes that you can keep your garbage can in that are sold as wildlife proof. So
It is securely affixed to the ground or to an immovable object or fixture.
yeah,
That was the container, which we'd already
Yeah.
agreed needs some work, right?
but the second part of the wildlife proof enclosure, it's clearly describing here a VOLB structure.
As what? A what?
A structure.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whereas the one above that wildlife proof container, I think, is describing the kind of lock boxes that you can buy. So, I mean, as you know, we've done this bylaw many times, gone back and forth. Many people have contributed and
Yeah.
changes. So now it takes an extra step of reviewing it one more time to try to fix those. But you can buy wildlife proof containers. But I guess what Michael's asking is, we all understand that garbage bins are wildlife resistant, not wildlife proof. That's clear. What Michael's suggesting is, if it's a structure, you should not call it wildlife proof. Is that what you're saying?
I'm not. What are we legislating here?
We're
Okay, so-
defining.
We're
okay.
making definitions, but
Yeah,
what
so we're trying to,
are we,
it's very
what are we
difficult.
tying that to?
It's very difficult. I get what you're saying. It's difficult to do. And it's somewhat awkward to do, and we've tried really hard because there's no specification code that you can get with what defines this.
Yeah.
And other municipalities have clearly struggled as well. Whistler had a whole specification of what it looks like,
Sure,
and it doesn't help much either.
sure.
What we try to avoid people doing in these structures is putting in a single skin, open spaced type slatted structure outside
Mhm.
that it is really easy for bears to get into, and lots of them were getting into last year.
Of course.
Clearly, some of them were actually seeking those kind of structures out. What we found that bears do not do is they do not break through the siding, right? Go through the drywall on the inside and climb into your house. They don't do that. So if you have a proper wall assembly, that's properly built up wall assembly, and if you build your garbage structure outside that way, bears don't get into it. So we try to make some way of defining that. How do you write that that it's foolproof is really difficult. So that's why we've used language such as this that allows someone to, sure, it's something that could be challenged. And to get to this, how many fines we're going to issue? I don't think we're going to issue any fines on this bylaw. I think we're going to come to a reasonable solution with the residents. All we're trying to do is give the bylaw officers something that they can actually say, well, actually, I could force you to pull it down if I had to. That's what we're trying to do.
What are the conservation?
That's not where I want to go.
What are they recommending?
Conservation officers?
Yeah, what do they recommend for the bear proof, or do they have any guidelines on that?
No, they don't.
They don't get into it.
No. If a bear damages your house, they will come kill it for you. That's all they do.
So the wildlife proof enclosure is simply meaning to define, and it's been defined here as having enclosed sides, a roof and doors and a latching door. And it's meant to differentiate it from something that's open and
A flimsy shed type
Yeah.
structure.
I mean, I had a neighbor 2 doors up who had a slatted little shed, and the bear got into it and then came back again and again and again and tore the slats off. And so if the idea is to differentiate between that type of insufficient enclosure and one that, and define it as something that is basically has closed sides. And so that the bylaw officers have some language that can assist them in this.
So what reference is there to these containers and enclosures? What are we enforcing into those?
So the enclosure we've just discussed. And maybe on the enclosure, it should read resistance as in proof. But then, you know, what is resistance? I don't. So that's why we try to make it stronger. But the enclosure we discussed. The reference to wildlife proof containers are the market available, huge, big, kind of tiny bin things that you can put your garbage can in with a latching seal that bears, but they're expensive. The bears will not touch.
Those are the $4,000 a piece that we have everywhere.
Starting at.
Yeah.
Starting at $4,000.
Well, those are the ones the municipality puts up, right? Isn't it?
The municipality puts up.
Well, you know, the boxes that are at the various trailheads.
We have them right outside here.
Down at the beach park, the ones we've talked about putting a smaller aluminum
sure,
plate on.
those, or you could go buy one of those, you know, $3,500, whatever they are. Or you can buy the large dumpster type container with the latching lid that has been proven and tested as bear-proof.
Which likely no one in the village will ever do.
Well, there's some named people. There's on the mountain has got one.
Okay. Okay.
There's been, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are a few of them.
Yeah.
But those can stretch you up to $8,000. If you want one big enough to be able to put all your garbage cans in.
Well, I think Michael's point is what does this mean? And I mean,
and what are we legislating? What are we telling people?
Well, we're defining.
Do this or else you'll get a $500 or $1,000 fine, which is how people are feeling about it, I believe.
Well,
you know, and you're saying, okay, well, 95% of the people are cooperative, and that's absolutely true, and everybody's wanting to be on board. And so how can we assist that to occur? You know, and there are going to be 1 or 2% who are not going to abide by any law, frankly.
Right.
Okay, but
So we can make the rules as tough as you want. But
over the last 10 years, when the foot was taken off the pedal on Bear Smart, you know, we were a victim of our own success. You know, the original Bear Smart group with Norma and others got out there and got in front of this, and it took years. And got to the point that, you know, everyone was doing things properly. And then, as I said, victim of their own success, less and less, you know, enforcement and, for that matter, education happened. And now we got to a situation where we created a bad circumstance. And we have, you know, bears with learned behavior. And they will continue to have learned behavior if we continue to put our, you know, garbage cans in flimsy structures. So we have to do something about it. Or we'll kill another 2 bears this year, or maybe it's more.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've added 2 clauses, wildlife proof container and wildlife proof enclosure to this bylaw. And that's going to help the bylaw officers to do what?
To ascertain whether the structure is adequate and the definitions that they've asked that we provide, we're providing thereby.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm having real difficulty with it. I don't think that that's going to create the outcome that we're after.
So what would you suggest?
Removing those 2 clauses at this point.
2 clauses?
Yeah, the wildlife proof, you've added wildlife proof container and wildlife proof.
2 definitions or 2 clauses?
2 definitions, pardon me.
Yeah, but that's what the bylaw guys need. That's what they've asked for. And it's not 95%, it's probably 99.9%. And it's in perhaps less than half a handful of cases. And they've asked for some language to provide them the definition so that they can, in those very rare instances, have language that they can interpret so that they can do their job. And so they're not clauses, they're definitions that we're providing.
Yeah, I'm gonna suggest we go around the table once more, and then if we we'll either call the question or we'll table this and see if we can't answer some of these questions in a little bit more detail.
Well,
Okay, I'd like to see if we can nut through, and, you know, we've been trying to do this in my case since December, so I'd like to see if we can at least make some further progress. Let's just look at the other items that Michael brought up. Item 6.
Yeah, that's it's not a huge issue. It's just, it seems redundant, honestly, but it's not a, but if we're changing something, you know, why are we changing it? It just seems to be redundant. They'd either do not attract and are not accessible. Well,
Okay, well, I'd have to look at the original track changes version to try to work out what we actually changed, because there's been several editions of this and several revisions through the committee and coming to council, because the committee changed something as we were going along.
well, I'd interpret 6.
So something that's just, you want to take out for redundancy, it doesn't do anything, let's leave it in.
Yeah, and I mean, it does have a purpose, which is that it shouldn't be serving to attract and also not be accessible. So it's again, providing a definition. And if I can just jump down to 29, Michael, which is one that you were, I think you'd mentioned, which is the outdoor fridges and freezers. That's simply to provide language to define what the proper.
So the other point with both that one and the reference to the electric fence, we did not change that. That was already in the bylaw. So why it says we amended the one on the electric fence, we might have amended the wording, but the beehives in the electric fence thing was already in the old bylaw.
okay.
So we changed some grammar, added in a word, but we didn't bring that intent to this bylaw. It was always there.
Okay. Yeah, I've left that at this point. But 29, in terms you've added and stored in wildlife resistant enclosure.
Right.
That's what we added.
Yeah.
And it didn't show up as an amended on this one version that I've got. Okay. Must be inaccessible wildlife and stored in a wildlife resistant
Enclosure.
enclosure. I mean.
And that simply means such that if you have an outdoor if you have a fridge
or freezer outdoors.
Yeah, outdoors, that you can't have it accessible to bears. You've got to have it again in an area where I mean
well,
I've had bears come into my garage. I have a habit of leaving the garage door open, and there was one in there last year, and he popped right in and popped the freezer open. Because he knows the freezer's in there.
You're going to get in trouble.
I'm in trouble, I know. So now I've got to keep the door closed. And that would satisfy that, right? To keep the freezer.
Yeah. I think the other thing is this, is people have this idea, well, if my fridge is up on my deck, right? It says shouldn't be inaccessible. So I put it in an inaccessible place. We had one case where the bear got on someone's deck, opened the fridge, there was beer cans, or I don't know which one the bear drank and which one the resident drank first. But anyway, there was a report of that. So that's where that one comes from. You know, what is inaccessible? Just put it up high enough. Well, we all know bears can climb, but at least, you know, the person, well, I put it up in an accessible spot. So that was the idea of that one. I just think it just adds a little bit of language. I don't think it probably strengthens the original intent rather than changes it.
Okay, we've got two alternatives here.
Okay, can I just sum up where we're at just before we go through two alternatives? So I think we hung up on the use of wildlife-proof enclosures. That's largely the biggest issue, correct, Michael?
Yes, and I'm still concerned about the wildlife-proof containers and mandating those. And we've got securely affixed to the ground.
Those are an option, right? They're not mandated. If you do not want to put your garbage can inside your garage or some other suitably strength structure, you have it and you want to leave it outside, you have the option of going and buying yourself an expensive dumpster style container. That option is available to you.
Mm-hmm.
So people have done that. We can't, if we exclude that and the guy that just spent 10 grand on this big steel box can still get fined. That's not fair. We're just trying to, that adds an extra option to it. That's the intent of that. You can get wildlife proof enclosure. You don't have to do it that way. But you could use that as an option, as opposed to, you know, rebuilding your shed into a proper reward assembly structure.
And the other part of wildlife proof is you keep it in your garage or in a closed shed, then that would satisfy that requirement.
What are the costs of those containers?
I know someone that spent almost 10 grand on one, but you can get much cheaper ones. It depends how much stuff you want to store in it. How big you want it to be. I mean, you can get smaller ones. I can't remember what they are like. I think Tidy Bin make them, but a relatively small one look like it'll take one garbage can. We did a whole bunch of research on it, but I don't know.
What, you know, so we're mandating costs to people, which I just, again, I'm
No, I mean,
we're
we're
not.
saying, or keep it in your garage, where
Keep it in your
probably
house.
most people do.
Keep it in
And
your house.
defining what is a reasonable structure to keep it in.
I think a lot of people don't have garages, so we're probably looking at asking them to buy containers.
Or to have a shed that is,
build a properly constructed shed.
that has
A lot of people
enclosed sides, a roof and doors and a latch, a closing door. That would satisfy it.
Most people have one of those things. Just over the time, some of these structures have become old and rotten, and the beggars come down and swats the side wall off, and they need to be rebuilt. Most people have something. I don't think there's anyone that actually just leaves the garbage can outside.
And I think we'd all agree that that wouldn't be kosher by any means.
No.
Yeah. So we're asking, keep it in a garage or in an enclosed shed, or if you want a fancy steel box, then have at it.
So what amendments are you proposing?
under definitions, wildlife resistant container, take away the word prohibit and leave it as it was at deter. Under wildlife resistant enclosure, take out the word prohibit and leave it as it was, which was deter. So no change there. Removing the dangerous wildlife, all those changes are fine. There's probably 100 changes that I have not been concerned about at all. So that's great.
So where's this with prohibit? I'm sorry, this would be under
definitions number 3.
Yeah.
Wildlife resistant container.
Yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Yeah. Well, why don't we just to prevent? I mean, I understand you.
To present, sure.
Would that work, Neville?
I'm not sure that I see it being enforced any differently if it said prohibit or deter. I mean, yes, someone could argue on deter. Well, it does deter him and hold him up for 30 seconds. It's a deterrent.
Well, would prevent work? That would mean.
Sure.
Yeah. Michael, would you be good with prevent in there? Sufficient
definitely
to prevent access by wildlife?
Again, nothing's going to completely prevent. What's the term? Limit?
No, limit's even weaker than deter.
I mean, the point of prohibit is that it does meet that standard. It has 4 sides, a roof, a door, and a latching mechanism that are effective.
Yeah, it's effective. It's designed to stop.
Not to just slow down, to inhibit, or so the word prohibit is in there to define that. I mean, you want to settle on prevent?
Do you understand? Do residents understand the implications of some of these? Do you think?
I don't think they're going to be reading the bylaw. I mean, I think
It's a good day. Another 5 minutes, and I'm going to call a question and retable it. Okay.
So, Michael, would you be fine with prevent? I mean, I understand your problem with the word prohibit. It sounds rather strong for anyone who bothers.
I'm happy with deter. Yeah.
Well, deter has a conditional language to it.
And that's why we changed it.
Yeah.
Was there before, but I'm comfortable with what was there before.
But anything deters.
Yeah.
You got to do better than deter.
A lattice work will deter a bear for a couple of minutes and then they're in. So it isn't sufficient language. I mean, if the bylaw officer wants to go and look and then applicant says, well, I got a lattice here that deterred, then they would have met that. But.
Okay, no, I'm happy with deter. The other two are the wildlife proof and the wildlife enclosure container, and I'm just how are we mandating?
We're defining We're not mandating, we're defining.
Okay, that's what I'm looking for.
Well, it's in there. We're defining the enclosure. So Michael, those are definitions.
Okay, the definitions, I'm just looking for reference to them later as to how do they apply? Why are we defining something?
Well, so that a bylaw officer in the very rare instance where somebody isn't doing the right thing, has some language which they've asked for so that they can, have the language that defines what these structures are.
Yeah, well, as I say, I would like to look at the entire, bylaw structure that we have, a bylaw enforcement structure. So,
Well, that's a matter for another day.
Another day.
yes,
I mean, that's a whole nother day.
yeah.
But here, I mean,
So we're changing a bylaw and creating capacity for bylaw officers to be implementing their will on our residents based on this information. So that's why I'm having some difficulty.
It's not their will.
Well, you're saying you're giving them the discretion.
You're implying that they get to have their will. It's not their will, it's what we decide they get to do.
and we're defining it for them so that they can, in those rare instances, have language which gives them guidance.
Well, I'm
Okay.
not willing to have
Okay.
I just don't want to be sitting here a year from now with people challenging by the bylaw because they've been fined and unnecessarily.
Okay.
Why would they challenge the
Okay,
bylaw?
gentlemen, I'll make a motion to table this discussion until the next meeting. In the meantime, we'll get more information.
We don't need more
I
information.
don't know, we're going to come back. with
Okay,
anything
I'm
different.
making a motion. Do we have a second for that? If the alternative is we'll rule on the motion at hand. Do we have a motion to table this?
Michael, we just have to get this done. The bear
We have a
season is
second.
upon
I'm
us.
making a motion to table this.
If we put in the word prevent instead of prohibit, would that make you happier? And the others are just simple definitions.
No, deter is good for those as it was. And
So this is the death of 1,000 cuts by bureaucracy here. I mean, we've answered every single question. So if this doesn't move forward, this is on you here. I mean, come on. This is
Michael, I'm asking to
absurd.
table. Michael, I'm asking if you would like to table this. I'm making a motion or we'll call the question. Okay,
I don't,
so that,
you table it to another meeting, you mean?
yeah, that's what I'm suggesting because
We're not going to know any more or any less in another meeting.
Well, Michael has
So-
questions on this and it doesn't seem to be being satisfied.
But what further information can be brought? Michael?
Table it as opposed to calling the question.
okay, I think if we removed those two, the two definitions, well-proof, def-proof container.
So the wildproof container, once again, just gives someone the option to go buy himself a big expensive box if he chooses not to build a shed.
Okay,
And that's the only reason it's there.
It's the reason, it just gives you another option.
okay, let's go prohibit, prevent access, strength to prohibit.
Yeah, well, are you good with the word prevent where,
I'm good with the word prevent.
Okay.
I think you don't see us going to a court case with some resident over whatever this comes up.
yeah,
It's just giving the bylaw officer something else to do, to use so they can get past.
Okay, to call the question. Michael, did you have any amendments that you're happy with or not? I'm gonna call the question now. I've
I'll
offered to
go-
table this.
Okay, I would like to move this forward. I don't want to create more issues in the future. And I don't,
So make your amendment and we'll vote on that. Or we're voting on the original resolution.
So working together on this, the word, wherever the word prohibit is in the wildlife resistant enclosure, you would like to see prevent in there?
no, I'd like to see deter in there. I'll go with prevent.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, any other amendments?
Well, I would like to identify my concern about these other definitions because they're not referred to elsewhere, and I'm not sure why they're necessary if that's the case. But I don't. I'm just concerned about creating bylaws that may create future problems. You know, I'm concerned about. We talked about costing and so on. I'm really wanting to be as supportive as I possibly can towards bears going forward and the village
Well,
residents
if that's the
going
case,
forward.
you need more information. I suggest it be tabled. But if you've got some amendments that can be answered now or
Well, I think I can live with this in the interim.
Okay, so we're
Okay.
putting the word prohibit in, prevent instead of prohibit under wildlife resistant enclosure. Okay, so should we call the question?
call a
Yep.
question
Okay, so it's been amended, as amended.
as amended?
With the word prevent replacing the word prohibit under wildlife resistant enclosure. Karen, you got that?
Anything else, Michael?
Yeah,
Okay, all in favor?
Yes.
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 Okay.
Thank you, Lord.
Opposed?
No, thank you, Mary.
Okay.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, utilities, we talked about that. We'll be looking for Ron Miller to
So
bring
what
us
was
up.
that for second and third reading?
It was first, second, and third. Yeah, it'll come back for adoption.
Hold on a second. Do we need to do this 3 times? We had this last time.
All right.
I would.
You read
Call the
once?
question again.
Okay. Call the question on the second. All in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed? Carried. Call the question on the third reading. All in
Yes.
favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Motion carried. Okay.
Mhm.
Utilities update, we had that earlier, or Mr. Miller will be updating us. We'll move right to correspondence. The correspondence for the March 7th, 2023 regular meeting. The council for the Village of Lions Bay be received and circulated, and that all such correspondence be acknowledged in writing, and that any correspondence seeking an action within the proper jurisdiction of the municipality is referred to the Chief Administration Officer. Michael? for you.
Okay, just like to very quickly say there were four items of general correspondence. One was to do with the SPCA. You had something on that? Did you, or we'll pick up on that later?
Normally you do, yes, I do.
Yeah. Okay, you mentioned in an email to me, you had something about that. So could I just leave you with that for a second and I'll cover off a couple of the, there's a advertisement for strategic planning. We've had a gentleman send us information on our garbage and recycling bylaw, giving guidance. The House on Community Forum, we've been invited to as a full participant on April 21st at Gibson's. So just a heads up there. I believe the mayor and myself are the representatives on the House on Community Forum. So I presume we'll be attending at that time. We just received that this week. Of the 12 letters of resident correspondence, there's 5 letters basically to do with procedure, and those have been made available to the mayor, to all council members, and to the CAO. So they have taken those under advisement.
So sorry, which letters are these now?
This would be February 26th.
Or can you give them to Beth by the R?
R3, R4, R5, R6, R7.
And so what are you proposing as a reply to those pieces of correspondence?
That they've been received and that they have been referred to the mayor, all members of council, and to the CAO.
And so how are you
Under
going to be
advisement.
responding to those pieces of correspondence?
that they have been received and that they will be forwarded to the various individuals. And I may put a paragraph as to how that may apply to council. But what I can do is certainly provide that response ahead of sending that out.
Yeah, I think so. Just reading our policies, I think everyone's certainly, a few of us have read them more recently again.
Right.
And it does say that any opinion that you give needs to be the consensus opinion of council.
Right.
So in some of these, that might be difficult, which is one of the reasons why I struggled with the previous term. My previous, so if you are going to say anything of fact or anything that sort of contests what's written, I think we should hear what your thoughts are.
I think, yeah, okay. I think in previous responses, I've tried to be factual as to the fact that council is dealing with a certain matter or is continuing to consider or something to that effect. I can certainly provide the wording that I've used. Okay, so that was
Michael, I'd ask you to be cautious in. I mean, you sent out an email last night that I replied to, where I think that your reply was not representing the view of council, but was rather presenting a particular view. And that's the caution I would have here. Also, I think in letter R4, there's a specific question as posed to you, Ken. And I don't know whether you have responded to that yet or intend to, or if you have a response at this time.
I'll respond in due course.
Okay, that would be the question as to the.
And I think your statement that council didn't agree with it, I thought Michael's response to you was right in line. I thought that you were out of order on that.
Well, I think that he was presenting information to a resident prior to this having come to the council meeting, which it shouldn't have. It should have come here first, and that's what
I replied to the letters from the last council meeting. No. I've not replied to any of these letters.
Well, some of them were in here. Some of the material was in here, and the content of what you were responding certainly did not reflect the will of council. We've had much debate about it.
Well, I think
which is exactly
what's responsible.
Exactly what I identified.
Yeah, well, he's responsible again for representing the view of council.
Well, his response represented my view. I don't know why it didn't represent your view, obviously.
Right. So you're not council, Michael's not council, we're all council. So when there's an issue that we have differing opinions on,
it'll be both opinions, or don't go to the fact.
Or don't go there.
I believe I reflected the discussion that was occurring.
No, you reflected an opinion, which was not the opinion of council.
Okay, well, perhaps you could identify that to me, because you
did identify that last night. Do you want me to identify it right now?
No.
No? Okay.
No, I'm going to continue with the letters at the moment. Okay, so there were 5 letters regarding procedure, which I've said have been referred. The one thank you, which was read to us in the last meeting. A letter of concern regarding the building inspector and Mr. Upanex, I'm sorry for slaughtering you. He spoke to us earlier this evening. Regarding the building inspector, we have a letter from former Mayor Carl Burr, which Councillor Abbott actually took a stab at answering previously. So that's great. And we had 2 letters regarding bears and support and concern about the bylaw. So, and which I've raised those issues in my discussion this evening, I believe. As well, there's a letter from Ruth Simons requesting information about Pride Trail, and quite concerned. And I actually will be reaching out to the Public Works Manager to determine what's going on with Pride Trail, because there is tape across it. And there's also been some questions regarding trail clearing elsewhere in the village that people weren't quite clear about what was happening between Kelvin Grove and Upper Lions Bay Avenue. The trail had been cleared out there completely, and while some were maybe celebrating that, others were concerned that they felt that it was sort of clear cut. So anyway, I'll get back to works manager regarding those things. So anyway, so I will endeavor to get back to each of these people, and keeping in mind that the comment earlier on that letters, that emails as they're received really do need to be acknowledged, and people need to be aware that, first of all, that their email has been received, and that what the process is going to be from there. So I'll work with council's permission, I'll work with staff to create a reply, and I'll run that by council before we implement that.
I think that would be a good idea. And it might be something very simple, like thank you for your correspondence.
Coming to the next
It'll
council
be
meeting.
coming to the next council meeting where council will provide direction on a response, but at least to acknowledge that. I think something along those lines would be good. You know, can I just comment?
That's virtually what I said in the letter of response, you know, have said to people in the letter of response, so that'll be easy to reconfigure.
Okay.
Right, it should be a very generic response if it is given.
And those responses would come from staff.
Yes, yeah.
But most of this, a lot of this correspondence we don't actually see is just correspondence that gets dealt with by staff, like my building permit.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, most of that, quite a lot of that doesn't actually even come to us. If it gets copied to all of council. Okay.
All right.
Do you have any further comments?
Yeah, I've got a couple of things just really quickly. And this is just remind you, R10. So we spoke previously about that.
Oh, right, sorry. Okay.
We spoke previously about that, and we decided that it would get referred to the Climate Action Committee.
Right.
We should probably just put that on our action list so we don't forget. But the Climate Action Committee needs to get this meeting going.
Yeah.
We need to get that report and get going on that, because that seems to be holding up things. But yeah, I mean, the clock's going to be ticking on soon. It's March now.
I believe that I'm hoping going forward there's going to be a number of grant opportunities, and I think it's going to be helpful if we're coordinating those, and in terms of getting the best bang for our buck in how we apply for them. And we've got some people willing to work with council on grants, so it'd be very helpful.
I'd like to comment on a letter here, which is R7.
Okay.
I'm just wondering how you're going to respond to this. This is the use of the village, part of the letter covers the use of the village update. And I mean, this is something that Neville and I met with Ron about. And I think it's worth pointing out that the articles in the village updates, as is outlined here, are intended to serve the purpose of informing and educating readers, and that they aren't there to argue or present particular points of view or opinion, that there's an effort to provide each member of council the opportunity to say something there. And I think the observation is that the phrasing that's used in the letter are speeches and grandstanding in the village update are not appropriate. And I think we all know what that's referring to, and I would caution.
All right, let's get back to business.
Now, this is the business, we're discussing a letter, and that I would encourage the author of these continuing messages to stop campaigning and speechifying and just present factual information, because it's not landing well.
All right.
My question.
Point of order. How
are you going to respond to this?
Gentlemen, Michael, did you have anything further that you wanted to discuss?
No,
Okay.
no, it's not a point of order. No,
business.
sorry. How are you going to respond to that is the question.
Thoughtfully.
Pardon?
Thoughtfully.
Okay, and then there was one final point.
Respectfully.
That's great, and hopefully representing the whole view of council.
Accurately.
Representing the view of council.
I'll just add that the CAO reviews all of the information in those updates. Okay.
Well,
what? He told us categorically he does not do that.
Right.
And
he
I
does.
And I had to
He does
point
not.
out to him in the policy what's his role. I'll send you the letter. I'll send you the email. We had a meeting.
We had to inform him that this is his job, and he was indicating Yeah, you know, but not going to do it. So
Well,
that's not the case.
That's not my understanding. They've been reviewed and edited.
And one final comment on the letter from Carl Boer, which is in point 2. He does call attention to the closed finance committee meetings. And, you know, I think he points out several problems with this, which, you know, I've raised as well. And I think it would again behoove the finance committee to bring come to council for direction as they lawfully should. And Carl Boer is pointing out essentially something very similar here.
Could I point out that the last 2 finance committees have been completely open? The first one, I think, involved some sensitive information, which was released as soon as we possibly could.
It was too open, Michael.
For abundance of caution.
Yeah, there was information released in the open that should have remained closed away. I mean, it was a fiasco.
Okay, I'll just, if I may comment, the more we put these obstructionist barriers in front of our committee members,
not a barrier.
The more we're going to scare them off.
No,
okay, we had 2 committee members here this evening as part of that beach club who walked out the door. Okay, they got just tired of this. The more this continues, the more volunteers we're going to lose.
This is not
what we want.
Ken, this is not obstruction. This is operating lawfully. It is working lawfully and by proper procedure.
We are working lawfully.
No, you are not. You are not bringing it to council for direct.
Anthony Tobin's direction the whole way along until he resigned. This is all lawful operation.
It is unlawful. Okay. You have never brought it to council for direction.
To challenge things.
Section 52.
We'll be seeking legal advice again on Thursday.
Not for the first time.
No, this is, we've sought legal advice along the way. Anthony Tobin has provided that on an ongoing basis. You challenged him every step of the way.
No, bring the council, bring the standing committees to council for direction.
You know, are the mayor's
appointments. Yes, right. And they do not operate as a separate entity without direction by council.
They have no decision-making authorities.
Have you brought ever to council?
Are donating.
What are you afraid of, Ken?
We're not
as per the procedures.
The orders of the day, but the fact is that procedures are being followed. That the law is being followed.
No, it is not.
If you don't agree with that,
read it. I say it over and over again. Number 52.
We not only have read it. I've requested interpretation of it, and if you don't agree with
English,
we have
as directed by council.
Okay. We have a situation where motions have been passed and you've denied it. So
I don't know what you're referring to, Mike.
Okay. It's easy fix.
All right, let's get back to business, gentlemen. Michael, anything further?
No, correspondence, I will deal with correspondence respectfully with all residents and provide
the view of council.
Thank you very much. We'll move to item number 15 then, new business. Disaster Mitigation Adaptation Fund. Okay, the government of Canada is committed to invest in public infrastructure that mitigates the potential for economic and environmental and social impact, climate change, and strengthens the communities.
Can I help out here? I put that on there and I asked for it to be removed. And the reason I asked for it to be removed because we've already done it, and that's what I just referred to.
Fabulous.
We decided it was going to the Climate Action Committee. So, you know, I actually asked for it to be removed back on Friday.
So moved.
Okay,
all right, removed.
All right, the new business, we had First Nations, and Michael, you had put forth a recommendation.
Right. Sorry.
So I guess
we have on multiple occasions.
What's that?
Michael offered me to speak about the SPCA, but I guess I'm not going to get back to that, am I?
Well, we'll hit First Nations first. That was the first new business.
Sorry, I missed that.
You said you'd ask me my opinion on the SPCA letter at the end.
Oh, right.
Okay. Anyway.
Well, it's the end.
Okay, Michael, continue on with First Nations.
Go ahead. The SPCA.
Do what you do. I'll comment to that.
Michael.
Okay.
First Nations.
Perfect. Okay. The new, we have on multiple times discussed the implementation of a First Nations acknowledgement at the beginning of our meetings. I was asked to confer with various groups, which I have done. The Squamish Nation, I've spoken, or I've contacted their culture and education department and have not been successful in getting feedback from them. However, looking at the Lions Bay School, looking at House on Community Forum, looking at all the various organizations who have already researched this, and having received a significant amount of village input, the sensitive and respectful acknowledgement appears to be, we are privileged to be meeting and doing work on the traditional unceded territory of the Squamish and Musqueam nations. And so what I'm would like to propose is that this become a standard opening to our meetings, as has become has become consistent in almost all public settings.
So that's a motion.
So I'm moving that this become an acknowledgement at the beginning of our meetings.
Okay, do we have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, discussion, yes.
Yeah.
A question, Michael, you said you'd reached out to the culture, and what was the body that you'd reached out to who didn't respond to you?
I'll have to look it up.
But you just read it there, the culture and...
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you just read some body within the Squamish Nation that was unable to provide comment to you?
I have reached out to it's the culture and education
Right.
group. I'll have to look it up. I'm sorry.
Which you just said that you hadn't received any guidance.
And I had not received,
Right.
have not received a response from them.
Right. You also mentioned that you'd had a significant amount of village input into this.
Mhm.
And where is that input?
There was an online discussion in Lions Bay Neighbors. I have received emails from a number of people, and I've talked to the school in terms of how they've approached things. I've talked to the head of the House on Community Forum and others who operate in our area. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, none of this has come before us. None of this has been shared with us. You have given a 2-line or a 1-line statement, provided it to us a number of times. But I think to say that we've had any significant discussion about this is not correct. I think that it is something that does require discussion, and I'd like to see something from the culture and education area that you haven't managed to get yet from the Squamish Nation. So I don't think we have enough information, and we haven't had enough discussion about it to move forward in a thoughtful and careful and well phrased way. And I would also say that I don't know about any Facebook conversations that you're referring to, but again, it's something that hasn't been brought to the table here. So I think on something as important as this, that this is something one wants to do right. You mentioned it's a sensitive and important thing, and I think that there's far more needed than what we've got.
Through the chair.
Councilor Barton.
One of my areas of contact, I'm the liaison for Village Council with First Nations. And under that role, I've reached out to a number of different areas. If Councillor Ruder is not satisfied with that, that's his opinion. I would like to proceed with the motion that's on the floor, and I would like to.
But Michael, you haven't shared any of that material with us. You haven't shared it. We're back to this problem of there's no material that we can discuss and study and then have an intelligent discussion about. So I would ask you to share that with us, this great research that you've done.
I think I have kept council apprised as I've been moving along. I think I've spoken to this at virtually every meeting.
Yeah, but you haven't provided any of the material that.
And I had not intended to do so.
Well, I think you should. I think it's an important question and it should be done in a thorough and thoughtful way.
I understand that you believe that I should provide that to you. I
To
don't.
all of us.
To all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that being, recognizing that respectfully, I ask that the motion that I have put before council be considered and be put to a vote.
Okay, Councillor Abbott, did you have something just before we get to the vote?
Yeah, I'm not sure what to make of that. So Michael, you're saying you're not going to show us any of this material. Is that what you're saying? And you want us to vote on it? Not sure what I just heard between the two of you.
I believe that I've provided background. I've explained the process that I've undertaken. And if you are not confident in my recommendation, then I think you need to vote against this.
Well, I was.
But if I think at some point you tax somebody, I think this is a situation that's problematic with why perhaps we were having trouble getting volunteers previously, as the people were being tasked and then not being respected in those tasks. And I guess that's where I'm feeling at this point. I'm fine to go either way, but I would like to, I'm suggesting as a result of the research that I've done and the people I've spoken to and so on, that this would be a respectful acknowledgement to make at the beginning of our meetings. The fact that I've been suggesting an acknowledgement at all since November the 1st, and it's been pushed along. I'm concerned about, but anyway, I would like to ask that my motion be put forward.
Okay, Councillor Abbott.
Okay. So I was pretty comfortable before we started this conversation how I was going to vote on this. I'm now not all of a sudden, Michael, because what you're telling us is you've spoken to people, you've spoken to First Nations, you have some feedback from them, this is right, but you don't want to show that to us. Just tell us who you spoke to, what they said, what their comments were, then we can feel comfortable that we have got the right. I'm now thinking, are we doing the right thing? Is this what our First Nations neighbours expect to see? In the beginning, I thought so, but if you have done that, then why would you say I've done it, but I'm not going to show it to you?
Okay, I'll just give my comments, and look, this is a standard protocol in all the meetings that I've attended, the Metro meetings, the TransLink meetings. As far as I understand, almost all of the cities that I know of acknowledge this. West Van, I think, had an issue with it, but other than that, everyone else has gone forward with this. Councillor Broughton has brought this forward to the council a number of times. This isn't the first time. I think he's brought this up many times in the past. So I don't have an issue with it personally. I think that this is a respectful thing to do. If we can't move forward on this, what more information are we looking for that is going to turn us? We've had suggestions from various citizens that we have been behind the curve on this. So what else do we need here to?
I was hoping to hear from Michael that he spoke to this or that person from the Squamish First Nation, potentially the Musqueam, but it's a little more difficult, I would guess. But I think you can reach out to someone in Squamish, and they have said, yes, I think that's great, or I would prefer if you worded it slightly this way. And I thought that's what you were going to be able to tell us. And if that's the case, I'm ready to say, let's go ahead and do it. But have we got any feedback from our First Nations neighbours, specifically the Squamish First Nation, on this?
Well, I've spoken to a number of people in their office and so on, but they've referred me to others because they want to be very cautious with that. So,
so if they've been very cautious, why aren't we being very cautious? I mean, I get we need to push it along, but can't we just say, well, guys, we want to do this. Tell us your opinion. If now you tell me they're very cautious to agree with it,
No, they're not cautious. No, they're not cautious to agree with that.
What did you say?
Okay, that's fine.
Michael, can you go back
Yeah,
to the
let's-
nation and see if you
Yes.
can't
Yeah.
bring something a little bit stronger?
Yeah, just, we want to do this, but what's your thoughts?
Okay,
Okay.
so why don't we table this?
Sure.
Motion to table this.
And Michael, I'd ask you to put together a package that has all the work that you are going to be doing on this, and then put it into an agenda as a report so that we can study it and then discuss it intelligently when we show up at the next council meeting.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Okay, all in favor, tabling this?
Yep.
Carried. Okay, we had the staff on the new business, and I think that referred to the cost of having staff attend the meetings and overtime costs. And we were going to request, I believe, a motion to have the CFO come with some cost benefit analysis on that. Was that,
Which item is this?
that was new business?
My request is less of a cost benefit analysis, just come with a factual report on how staff are remunerated for a council meeting,
Okay,
if they are.
And if we're going to do that, I'd like to see a report from staff as to the same topic, and that it not just come from the CIO.
What?
I think the CAO is the main.
Well, I know,
Okay.
I know.
I'm sorry.
Let me just say, I know he's got a particular point of view on this. And so I would want to hear from staff so that we've got a full piece of
I'm
information.
sure he's going to consult his staff.
Well, I'd like to see something from.
We have a
staff.
motion for that the CFO put together a report, cost benefit analysis.
Well, and I'm not asking for a cost benefit
And
analysis.
then what would satisfy you?
I would like,
I'm interested in this as well. I think this will be interesting feedback.
I know the answer because we've seen the contracts and it's happened in previous years. I would just like him to explain how staff are remunerated for coming to these meetings. Because I'll say it again, they don't get paid overtime, and that's what I keep hearing. So just bring us the contract and show us how they're remunerated,
All right.
where it is and where it says that. That's all I ask.
A motion to explain how staff are compensated. Sure. Okay, second. All in favor?
Yes.
Sure.
Great. Okay. That's all I had on this. Was there something else under new business?
No.
No. Okay. We'll move to public questions, and anyone in the gallery like to
First chance.
speak or? No. Okay, Karen, if you can open up the.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, can you guys hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, I won't take too long. Look, first comment I'll make is thank you to all the people who work hard to make this community a great place, including the volunteers who came by, the folks who are currently serving on committees and whatever, and the two, I think, gentlemen, I can't see because the camera's small, but the two folks, residents who are sitting in the back and have suffered through this meeting. I will say that, by the time you guys figure out your process, when it comes to these standing committees, it won't matter because you won't have people to fill them. And whatever direction council wants to give them will be meaningless because there won't be anybody there to receive it. I will say, I'll keep my comment quick on this, on the garbage bylaw, that I think there's probably some democratic issues in passing a second and third reading without, calling for discussion, without subsequent resident feedback. So I'll be researching that with my colleagues tomorrow. And, I just want to point out to you guys that prevent and prohibit are the same. So in concept, they're the same. Deter is a different meaning. And, bears are very intelligent. And there's no questioning that. So the notion that, we're going to create enclosures of cinder blocks down by the driveways, or it just sounds crazy. And I don't think it's well thought out. And fundamentally, I will say you're arguing two different positions, and you guys don't realize that a group of council wants there to be bear proof like measures that prevent bears from accessing the garbage fully. And another part of council says, look, that's unreasonable because these structures can break down, these structures can deplete over time, and we need them to actually make efforts just to deter them and then to revise those. So I'll leave that. The one other point that I want to make is that, you know, there was a member of the gallery at the beginning of this, or the public participation portion at the beginning, who was talking about democracy and the election results and whatnot. And, you know, I had refrained from accepting that the stuff that we're seeing happen on council are a reflection of the results of the past election, still being, you know, not contested, but thought of. And I just want to point out that, you know, in every single election, vast majority of elections in Canada under our democratic system, the person who gets the job doesn't have a majority mandate. And that's true in every single level of government. And, you know, just to quote Winston Churchill from back in my day, you know, democracy is the worst form of government, except for all the others that have been tried. So that shouldn't even come into this discussion. That's the system that we're all playing in. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Karen. That's it.
Anybody else?
Okay, if there's anyone else that would like to speak, please put up your hand.
Oh, open your mic if you don't have a hand.
It looks like Dawn.
Were you like, we could have a bunch of people gonna go home, get drunk, and it's fucking fun.
Okay. I think we'll
Unbelievable.
Sorry, I thought that was a hand. I think that was your pointer, which is a hand moving around.
Yeah, no.
Okay, with that, we'll close up the meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
So moved.
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Yes.
Carried.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Fellows comment, thoughtful. We're going to keep going this way and we won't have any volunteers.